One of my favorite things about anime is that there is truly something out there for every taste bud. Whether it's volleyball, cooking, or even just trains, there's something for everyone. And the show we're discussing today gave me exactly what I've been looking for, an anime entirely about science. That's right, today we're talking about Dr. Stone, and we're about to see our MC go from this
I'm finally free!
to this.
We've arrived at the final hurdle.
Get excited! Dr. Stone is an anime that started in 2019, based on the manga by Reiichiro Inagaki. The series follows a boy genius named Senku as he tries to single-handedly restart human civilization after a global catastrophe. The show has been widely praised for its scientific accuracy, so it's not just purely entertaining, but it's also really educational. If that sounds boring to you though, don't worry. There are also plenty of badass characters and battles. Let's not waste any more time though, and dive right in. Our first episode kicks off on a sunny high school day just like any other. The honest and cheerful Taiju bursts into the science lab and tells his best friend Senku that today is the day he will finally be confessing his feelings to his longtime crush, Yuzuriha. Senku is too busy building some insane science contraption to really care, but he does offer to give his buddy a love potion that will guarantee Yuzuriha falls for him. Taiju rejects the potion, saying he wants to do it the right way, which is for the best. Senku tells his classmates that the potion was actually just refined gasoline that would have killed Taiju. Don't worry though. Senku is not a reckless guy by any means. He just knew there was no way someone like Taiju would ever take a shortcut like that. Senku and his fellow lab geeks watch from the windows as Taiju prepares his confession. Senku is 10 billion% sure that Yuzuriha is into Taiju too. Side note, 10 billion% is Senku's catchphrase, which doesn't really make a ton of sense. Senku seems like the logical kind of guy who would criticize someone for saying they gave 110% effort, since 100% effort is the most you can give. But maybe it'll grow on me, we'll see. Anyway, Taiju is just about to confess his love to Yuzuriha when suddenly the entire world is enveloped in a blinding green light. In an instant, every human being is turned to stone, and life as we know it grinds to a complete halt. Taiju's willpower is so insane, however, that he manages to hold on to his consciousness the entire time he is petrified. Driven by the thought of Yuzuriha, he is washed away by waves and battered by storms. But for thousands of years, Taiju refuses to let go. Eventually, Taiju miraculously breaks out of his stone shell and finds himself inside a cave. What was once a bustling town in Japan is now an overgrown forest, with broken pieces of petrified humans scattered all over. Taiju manages to find his way back to where he was first petrified, and is relieved to find Yuzuriha still in one piece. This entire time, her statue was protected by the tree she was standing under. Tearfully confesses his feelings to a stone Yuzuriha, but then he notices a message carved into the tree. Follow the river, big oaf. Now, who do we know that would refer to Taiju that way? Taiju follows the river, and before long, he finds his old friend Senku, who has already managed to create clothes, tools, and shelter. Taiju is incredibly happy to see his friend alive, but Senku is just as nonchalant as ever. He tells Taiju that they were petrified for 3,700 years, and Senku knows this because the entire time he was petrified, he counted the seconds. Yeah, he just counted straight up, all the way into the hundreds of billions. Now that's some insane brain power. Senku woke up 6 months before Taiju in the same cave, and he spent that time making a plan to basically speedrun civilization. and a tireless workhorse like Taiju was just the thing he needed. See, the first time around, it took quite a while for humanity to progress from the Stone Age to the modern era, and Senku is looking to use his scientific knowledge to shave a few thousand years off that time. For a guy like him, this is just the kind of challenge that gets him pumped up. Senku explains to Taiju that the reason they both woke up must have something to do with the unique combination of chemicals in the cave where they woke up. By combining bat poop with alcohol, Senku believes he can create a miracle fluid to undo the petrification. So he and Taiju start creating makeshift wine from wild grapes. Months of trial and error pass, until finally they find the correct formula. They test the miracle fluid on a stone bird, and it works like a charm. Civilization, here we come. Episode 2, King of the Stone World. In our next episode, with their miracle fluid in hand, there's zero question who Taiju wants to save first. The boys rush over to Yuzuriha and are about to revive her, when Taiju realizes that she's buck naked. Even in this stone world, he's worried about this girl's modesty. Taiju starts carrying the statue back to their base when they hear growling from the forest. Turns out, the petrification only affected birds for some reason, and all the previously endangered species have been thriving these last 3,000 years. Senku and Taiju are chased by a pack of lions, and all the scientific knowledge in the world can't save them from these hungry cats. Suddenly, Taiju remembers a statue he saw earlier that looked familiar. This hulking beast of a man is Tsukasa, a famous athlete who was known as the strongest primate high schooler. Taiju leads them to Tsukasa, and Senku uses their one dose of miracle fluid to revive him. Tsukasa assesses the situation in an instant and kills the biggest lion with a single punch. Wow! Because while this is fundamentally a show about science, it's also an anime at its core, which means, of course, there are high schoolers who can beat up lions with their bare hands. Taiju is hyped that they now have someone who is basically superhuman on their side, but Senku is worried. If Tsukasa turns on them, then they have no chance of stopping him without advanced weaponry. But I'm sure it won't come to that. The boys head back to camp with enough lion meat to last them weeks, and get properly introduced.
I'm Taiju, the simple one.
It'll take a while to make another dose of miracle fluid, so in the meantime, Senku tasks Taiju with crushing up seashells to create calcium carbonate. This is one of the most versatile resources. It'll allow them to create cement, soap, and even fertile soil for farming. There's one more use for it, but Senku is being cagey about it. Seems like he doesn't fully trust Tsukasa yet. And when Senku has a hunch, you'd be smart to trust it. Later, Tsukasa tells Senku about his childhood, where he faced abuse at the hands of an alcoholic grown-up. He then punches the head off of a random statue and tells Senku that he has no interest in reviving crappy adults. Damn, dude! That guy could have just been an old-looking kid for all you know. Senku points out that he basically just murdered somebody, but Tsukasa doesn't even care. He wants to take this civilizational restart as an opportunity to create his ideal world ruled by the young, but Senku is planning on reviving everyone he possibly can. With these two at odds, it looks like we're heading for a showdown between the world's strongest and the world's smartest. Episode 3, Weapons of Science. Right as Senku is deciding this guy is bad news, Taiju runs up and gives away the biggest advantage they had. He blabs about the miracle fluid right in front of Tsukasa. Oops! Taiju announces that they almost have enough miracle fluid to revive Yuzuriha. Then, Senku says they'll just need to make one more trip to the cave to collect more nitric acid, aka bat guano. Tsukasa says that he'll go get it since he's the fastest, but he is actually just interested in learning the cave's location for himself. Naturally, Senku anticipated this and only wanted an excuse to get rid of Tsukasa. The second that Japanese Tarzan is gone, Senku whips out the nitric acid he had stored up and creates the last of the revival fluid they need. They revive Yuzuriha, and finally, Taiju has waited over 3,000 years for this moment, so he can wait a little more. He decides to hold on to his confession until after this battle for the fate of civilization. Senku fills the other two in on Tsukasa's ageism and new murder habit. Meanwhile, Tsukasa has already found the cave and smashed a whole ton of statues along the way. Now he's back even sooner than Senku could have expected. Senku pulls out a crossbow he built and shoots at Tsukasa, but the guy catches the bolt mid-air. Then, Taiju charges at Tsukasa, but instead of attacking, he tells Big Boy that he can beat up Taiju as much as he wants, as long as he stops breaking statues.
I don't hit anyone! You can hit me or kick me or whatever the hell you want to do! But I'm telling you, you gotta stop breaking those statues!
Aww. Taiju is the epitome of lover, not fighter. Tsukasa doesn't believe these weaklings pose any threat to him, so he just leaves to go smash some more people up. But Senku has a plan to create a weapon even Tsukasa can't beat, and the three set out to collect some more resources. After a while, Senku is having trouble navigating with just the position of the sun, but luckily, Yuzuriha recognizes where they are. Only one thing has survived all these years: the giant bronze statue of the Buddha. Now, Senku knows their exact coordinates, and he's 10 billion% sure that he can get the ingredients they need. They head to nearby hot springs, and Senku finally reveals what they're going to create. They're making a gun. That is not what I expected from a scientist, but, respect. Episode 4. Fire the smoke signal. Apparently, making gunpowder is a lot easier than even I would have thought. All they had to do was combine sulfur from the hot springs with some materials they already had, and boom. No, I mean literally, boom. Taiju accidentally causes an explosion while mixing the stuff up, all part of the scientific process, I guess. But then, unexpectedly, the three of them see a smoke signal off in the distance. Senku knows it can't be Tsukasa because he would have no reason to give away his position. It seems like they aren't the only humans left in this stone world after all. Senku decides to trust his gut and make contact with whoever sent the smoke signal. But while Taiju is out lighting more fires, Tsukasa shows up and takes Yuzuriha hostage. He tells Senku that he's figured out his plan to make gunpowder. For a primate high schooler, this guy is pretty smart. He demands that Senku tell him the exact formula to make more miracle fluid. And despite how logical he is, Senku is really just a big softy at heart. He quickly tells Tsukasa the formula to save Yuzuriha. Tsukasa isn't satisfied though, because he knows if he lets Senku live, he'll just create stronger weapons. We then get a flashback to Senku as an adorable little kid who dreamed of going to space. His adoptive father Byakuya was super supportive, and even sold his own car to buy his kid's science equipment. What a G! With help from Taiju and Yuzuriha, it wasn't long before Lil Senku built an actual working miniature rocket that he sent into orbit. When he sets his mind to something, there's nothing Senku can't do. Back in the present, Tsukasa gives Senku one last chance to save his own life. He asks Senku to abandon science. But that's like asking Pikachu to abandon lightning. He will never do it. Tsukasa tells his enemy that in another life, Senku probably would have been his first real friend. Being the strongest is really lonely. Tsukasa then delivers a fatal strike to Senku's neck. Episode 5. Stone World, The Beginning. Taiju returns just in time to see his friend lying lifeless on the ground. He is overcome by grief, but knows that Senku wouldn't want him to lose his head. So Taiju throws a huge boulder over Tsukasa's head. distracting him just long enough for Yuzuriha to scatter the gunpowder. The boulder lands, it makes a few sparks and causes a big explosion, allowing the two sweethearts to escape with Senku's body. Taiju starts to realize that Senku isn't the kind of guy who would sacrifice his own life without some kind of backup plan. When they roll over his body, they find that there is still a little bit of the stone shell left on Senku's neck. See, Senku had a theory that when a body part gets unpetrified, it will repair any damage done to that part. Taiju pours the last of their miracle fluid onto Senku's neck and begs for his friend to wake up. Episode 6: Two Nations of the Stone World. The next episode starts with a flashback to the 6 months Senku spent alone right after waking up. He ultimately decided that the petrification must have either been an alien attack, a failed government experiment, or some new kind of supervirus. Senku then worked tirelessly to uncover the secret of the miracle fluid, and eventually realized how he was able to break free just from bat crap dripping on him. All the brain power he exerted by counting for thousands of years made his stone shell weaker, and the nitric acid alone was enough to break it. He cracks the case thanks to Einstein's theory of relativity, and commemorates it by writing the equation on his shirt with his own blood.
Never forget, petrification may seem like a fantasy, but the foundations of science are rock solid.
Damn! This guy is hardcore about science. Back in the present, Senku's theory works and he miraculously comes back to life. The petrification may have destroyed all of civilization, but it can apparently also heal any injury. So, there are pros and cons. Yuzuriha suggests that this could mean they can save the statues that have already been destroyed by simply putting all the pieces back together before using the revival fluid. And that's just the job for former president of the crafting club, Yuzuriha. For now though, they need a plan to take on Tsukasa. Taiju and Yuzuriha will go join Tsukasa's new stone empire and act as spies. At the same time, Senku will make contact with whoever sent the smoke signal and raise a science army of his own. The friends say their goodbyes and head off on their separate missions. Man, I'm tearing up here. Meanwhile, Tsukasa has already made contact with this stone world's native inhabitants. He is being followed by the beautiful and deadly Kohaku. She immediately attacks with stone daggers and impresses Tsukasa with her speed and prowess. Kohaku saw everything that went down between Tsukasa and Senku, and she believes Tsukasa is a madman who murdered an incredible sorcerer. I mean, she's not entirely wrong though. Tsukasa has no idea where this primitive woman came from, but he also doesn't really care since she's not that much of a threat. He knocks down a massive tree right on top of Kohaku and leaves her pinned to the ground. Fortunately, Senku heard the commotion and soon arrives. He crafts some bamboo wheels and fiber rope to make a pulley capable of lifting the massive tree, all to Kohaku's amazement.
My name is Kohaku, and honestly, I believe I've taken quite a liking to you.
Okay, Senku, I see your game. Episode 7, Where 2 million years have gone. Apparently, Kohaku belongs to a primitive tribe of people who can all conveniently speak perfect Japanese. Kohaku's sister Ruri is the village's priestess, but she's fallen sick, so Kohaku came out here for some spring water. Senku uses the pulley materials to build a little go-kart and zoom back to Ishigami Village. The village is on a small island connected by a wooden bridge, and the bridge is guarded by the no-nonsense Kinro and his pervier, more cowardly little brother Ginro. They're not supposed to let any outsiders into the village, but Senku performs some sorcery for them, which is really just blowing bubbles with soap. This gets the attention of Ishigami's village own resident sorcerer, Chrome. Everything that these villagers consider magic is just basic science to Senku. Chrome challenges Senku to a magic duel at his hut outside the village. For his first trick, Chrome throws chemicals into a fire to make it change color. Pretty, but not very threatening. That's not all though. He's got a sulfur ball that he can rub to generate a small static charge. Now we're cooking. Senku uses some leather cloth to rub the ball and creates a much larger static charge. Chrome is forced to admit defeat in the face of Senku's obviously superior intellect. But Senku is impressed with how much Chrome has managed to figure stuff out on his own, and invites him to become the first official citizen of the Kingdom of Science. Chrome already has a huge stockpile of materials he's been collecting for years, which will speed up Senku's plan by a ton. Kinro, the older and more serious guard brother, isn't impressed by any of this. That is, until Senku dips his spear into a vat of mercury and gold dust to create a golden spear. Even primitive men can't resist a kick-ass golden spear, but he's still not going to let Senku into the village.
That being said, I think I'll just keep it like it is now.
Damn! Then, Chrome tells Senku the reason he started collecting every mineral he could find was to try and find a cure for Ruri's illness, cause he's got a huge crush on her. That night, Senku tells Chrome everything about modern civilization, how far humanity progressed, and how the petrification destroyed it all. Chrome is brought to tears by the idea that so much knowledge got wiped out in an instant. But Senku tells him to save his tears. All that knowledge is still right here, inside Senku's brain. He promises that they can create antibiotics to save Ruri, and the two officially team up. Episode 8, Stone Road. Senku lays out all the steps they'll need to go through to create antibiotics, and it's a lot of backbreaking work. They'll need to first use magnets to collect iron sand from a riverbed, and it's taking forever with just Senku, Kohaku, and Chrome. In rolls the adorable Suika. And no, that's not her head. It's just a hollowed out melon she likes to wear for reasons. Suika is a curious child who just wants to be helpful. And when Senku doesn't comment on her strange choice of headgear, she takes an instant liking to him. So, while Suika gathers up iron sand, Senku realizes that Chrome has been making a lot of references to things he shouldn't have any knowledge of, like Japanese folklore and animals he's never even seen. Chrome says that that's because Ruri tells everyone stories about things from the past. Huh. Just where did this village come from? Next, they need to create an oven hot enough to forge iron. But the four of them fanning the flames just isn't cutting it. They'll need to recruit a lot more people to the Kingdom of Science if they want any hope of finishing this project. They send Suika to gather information on what each villager wants so they can use science to create it.
Great Detective Suika? I'm finally gonna be useful!
Yeah, she can fit her entire body into a watermelon. How cool is that? Suika returns and tells Senku that some of the villagers are sick of only ever eating fish, so it's time for Senku to use the science of cooking. He harvests grains and molds it into noodles, adds egg, salt, and some other seasonings, and boom, Stone World Ramen. The ramen absolutely blows the minds of these people who have never even had seasoned food before. But for Senku, who's used to the modern stuff, it's absolutely disgusting. Man, this show really makes you grateful for the little things, doesn't it? Episode 9, Let There Be the Light of Science. Senku sets up his ramen stand right outside the village, and it is a hit. The villagers are more than happy to provide back-breaking labor in exchange for some delicious noodles. But then, a mysterious stranger appears at the stand. Senku recognizes him immediately as Gen Asagiri, a famous high schooler magician that Senku saw on TV before the petrification. Gen is a master at reading and manipulating people, so it's not much of a stretch to assume he's exactly who Tsukasa would send out as a spy. But Senku doesn't really give a crap why he's here, and just puts him to work on their upgraded furnace. Soon, Gen admits that he was sent by Tsukasa to confirm Senku's death. But now that he's seen the Science Kingdom in action, he's having doubts about which side he wants to be on. Gen tells Senku that he is incredibly shallow and will choose whoever can provide a better life for him. Senku replies that once Gen sees their next shocking project, there's a 10 billion% chance he'll switch sides. That's right, it's time to get some electricity. And perfect timing, because there just happens to be a thunderstorm on the way. Senku isn't messing around here. The science team starts forging copper wire using a plank of wood that Senku rips right out of the village's bridge. This gets the attention of the village tough guy Magma, who's just been looking for an excuse to beat up some nerds. But Gen uses some basic magic tricks to freak out Magma and his goons and send them packing. Kohaku takes Kinro's golden spear, straps a metal rod to it, and jabs it into the top of the hill. Lightning strikes, and just like that, the science team now has a strong magnet. But do not try this at home, kids. Magnets plus copper plus phosphorus equal a badass dual crank generator. Gen convinces Kinro and Ginro to operate the cranks. When Senku plugs in a bamboo filament, let there be light. Episode 10. A Flimsy Alliance. Gen is amazed that Senku has created electricity in this stone world in such a short time, but he's still not completely sold on the Kingdom of Science. We then see a flashback to when Tsukasa revived Gen. Looks like Tsukasa has been gathering the most useful and powerful people possible to join his stone empire, and he's so terrifying that you can't blame for not wanting to betray the guy. Back in the present, a group of men from the village assault Gen in the forest and brutally stab him in the chest with a spear. Fortunately, he had stuffed his shirt with blood bags just in case something like this happened. So when Senku's squad finds him, he's still alive. Detective Suika investigates and learns that Magma was responsible for the attack. I mean, obviously, right? Then, Kohaku tells Senku about the village tradition called the Grand Bout. It's a combat tournament where the winner gets to marry the village priestess Ruri. Last year, Magma said openly that he would kill Ruri and take over the village if he won. Kohaku was enraged and ended up winning the tournament. But since Kohaku can't marry her own sister, they're holding another grand bout next month.
I guess that means Ruri and Kohaku will just have to marry each other then! That's super forbidden love!
Inconvenient, but I'd say it's a good rule to have. Anyway, Magma tried to kill Gen so he could win without any surprises from sorcerers in this year's tournament. But Kohaku is determined to make sure that doesn't happen. Chrome would love to be the winner so he could marry Ruri, but the only ones in the Science Kingdom who even have a chance of beating Magma are Kohaku and Kinro. The fighters train relentlessly, while Chrome and Senku focus on creating the antibiotics. That night, Gen slips away from the village and returns to Tsukasa. At first, it looks like Gen is going to completely sell out Kingdom of Science, but Senku promises to create an ice-cold cola for him, and that was just too hard to resist. So he tells Tsukasa that Senku is 10 billion% dead. Another ally for science! Episode 11, Clear World. Next, Senku is creating another thing we definitely take for granted in our everyday lives: glass. He's already figured out that the reason Suika wears that watermelon is because her vision is poor, and looking through the eye holes helps improve her vision. Similar to squinting, Suika calls her poor vision fuzzy sickness, and has been ashamed of it her entire life. Senku tells her that there's nothing to be ashamed of, because where he comes from, it isn't a big deal at all, as millions of people wore glasses. Heck, you're probably wearing some right now, frickin' Four Eyes. Anyway, after mining some quartz and mixing it up with ingredients they already had, they've got lenses for Suika's mask. Senku pops it on her head, and she is able to see the world around her clearly for the first time ever. Damn, science is making me cry. Over with the fighters, Kinro is struggling to improve because he secretly has the fuzzy sickness himself. He refuses to tell anyone except Ginro because he's embarrassed. Looks like dude hasn't gotten the memo. Anyway, now that they have glass, Senku can create bottles to mix chemicals in. But even though he may be the world's smartest man, that doesn't mean he knows how to do the incredibly delicate task of glass blowing. So Chrome kidnaps the village's resident craftsman, Old Man Koski. At first, he doesn't want any part of their schemes, but when he sees the glass furnace in action, the artist in him can't help but join in. Even without any scientific knowledge, this dude is a master in his field who can adapt to this new material instantly.
I can't take it anymore! Boy, you got me real good, damn it!
Oh yeah, and he's super jacked. Within a few days, they've got an entire lab full of glass equipment and are ready to collect their next ingredient. But Senku warns the next one, chemistry's greatest treasure, will be the most dangerous one yet. Episode 12, Buddies Back to Back. Before Senku, Kohaku, Chrome, and Ginro head off on this super dangerous expedition, Senku creates a silver spear that will help them out later. Ginro is psyched to have a spear just as cool as his brother's gold one was, but he has no idea what he's in for. Senku tells him to hold the spear in front of him as they walk, and if the tip turns black, he has 0.1 seconds to stop walking or die instantly. Science is scary! Their destination is a pool of sulfuric acid, which means they'll have to walk through a lethal cloud of hydrogen sulfide to reach it. Ginro almost walks straight into the poison cloud and is narrowly saved by Kohaku. They head back and have Koski make a gas mask, but it's still super risky. Senku says that he'll be the one to get the acid and tries to pass down all his knowledge to Chrome in case he dies. But Chrome rejects that and says they'll have a better chance of success if they go together.
You're coming back alive! There's a 10 billion% chance! You have to, Senku!
What a guy! Kohaku overhears this, and it reminds her of a similar situation she's in with Ruri. See, the village priestess's main duty is to remember a collection of stories known as the 100 Tales, and pass them on to the next generation. Since Ruri got sick, she's been trying to teach Kohaku the stories to make sure they aren't forgotten. But Kohaku can't accept that her sister could die, so she's been rejecting the responsibility to learn the tales. Chrome and Senku head back to the acid pool, but Ginro is too cowardly to go this time. They collect the acid, but suddenly, the rocks break beneath Chrome's feet and he tumbles towards the pool of acid. Right as he's about to turn into Chrome soup, Ginro arrives and catches Chrome with his spear. Look at that! The cowardly, pervy character pulled through after all! Episode 13, Masked Warrior. The only steps remaining to get antibiotics is a whole bunch of chemistry work. The only other thing they need is some alcohol, and that just so happens to be one of the prizes for the grand bout. And to improve their chances even more, Senku signs up for the tournament too. If he goes up against Kinro, he'll just throw the match to give the guy an easy win. Yeah, it's kinda cheating, but I'd say the stakes justify it. The next day, the tournament begins and Senku enters the village proper for the first time. When Ruri hears his name for the first time, she is shocked and claims that despite never meeting him, she's known Senku all her life. She asks Senku his last name, but before he can answer, Ruri collapses into a coughing fit and is carried away. Magma loudly celebrates this and says it looks like that when he wins, he won't even have to kill Ruri. Seriously, how is this bastard allowed to say these things out loud? Chrome enters the tourney too, and this whole time, he's been practicing one thing only, hitting Magma right in the junk.
It's a sound strategy. If we're trying to wear him out in the early rounds, then his testicles will be an excellent target to strike.
Solid strategy. The Kingdom of Science has numbers on their side, but it's all gonna come down to their placement fights. And it couldn't be worse. Kinro is going up against Magma in the very first round, without any opportunity to wear Magma out first. Then, Senku gives Ginro some performance-enhancing drugs just to cheat some more. When one of Magma's goons shows up and tells them that Suika has fallen into a nearby river, they know it's probably just a ruse to lure them away from the tournament, but they can't risk it. Kohaku sprints to check and hopefully make it back in time for her match. Suika is actually just tied to a tree, and she goes melon mode to escape. Not sure about the science of that, but alright. In the first round, Kinro shows surprising speed, but his eyesight is just too poor to judge distance. Suika arrives back and recognizes the look on Kinro's face, realizing he must also have fuzzy sickness. She throws her helmet onto Kinro's head, and with his vision improved, he pummels Magma with ease. Episode 14, Master of Flame. Kinro clearly has Magma beat, but Magma tries to make the argument that using a helmet is against the rules. The referee says that since it isn't a weapon, he'll allow it. But of course, the whole thing was a ruse to distract Kinro so that Magma could sneak up from behind and smash his helmet, giving Magma the win by knockout. Magma has his goon throw the next fight against Chrome immediately, just to try and get to Kohaku's match before she makes it back, and it works. Kohaku is just slightly too late, and Senku wins the next match by default. It seems like Ginro is the only chance they have left, and fortunately, the power-up drink Senku gave him seems to be really working. Senku tells the others that he actually only gave him caffeine, but Ginro might be able to pull this off on pure confidence and energy. That lasts about 10 seconds until Ginro gets the runs and is down for the count. Ugh. Disappointing and disgusting. Ugh. Now, it's Chrome's turn to take on Magma, but it's not going well. Magma is mercilessly beating Chrome. When our homegrown scientist sees the remains of Suika's helmet on the ground, he throws sand in Magma's eyes and dashes over to it. He uses the lens to focus the sunlight and light Magma's tunic on fire. But Senku knows that the concave lenses used in glasses don't work like that. I mean, it would be pretty bad for your eyes if they did. Chrome has figured that out too, but he has a plan. Using his own sweat and tears, he fills in the lenses and makes them convex. They'll still need Magma to stand still for 60 seconds for this to work, but then Gen shows up much to Magma's surprise, because the big guy still thinks that he killed Gen. Gen pretends to place a curse on Magma that will make his heart explode if he moves in the next 60 seconds. Magma hesitates. His shirt catches fire. Chrome jabs him in the nuts and knocks him right off the island. Now that's a complete victory. Episode 15, the culmination of 2 million years. Chrome has more than deserved this victory, so Senku agrees to throw the final match for him. Ruri seems pleased with this outcome too. Out of all of the men she could be forced to marry by tradition, Chrome is the only one she actually likes. Unfortunately, Ginro is still technically in the tournament, and his sleazy side has realized that this is the best chance to get a hot wife. He tries to beat Senku in their match, and the entire village is begging for the outsider to win just so Ginro doesn't become chief. Way to ruin your own redemption arc, Ginro! Senku uses Suika's helmet to win the match, not by lighting a fire, but by using it as a fulcrum and launching his staff right into Ginro's crotch. Damn, every guy felt that. It's time for the final round. Chrome has reached his limit and passed out from exhaustion. Senku doesn't even have a chance to throw it, and ends up as Ruri's new husband and village chief. Luckily for Chrome, Senku isn't interested in politics. He just takes the booze that he won, rejects Ruri as his wife, and runs back to the science lab. Senku and his team do a crazy amount of chemistry work super fast. And finally, after 6 months of hard work, they've got antibiotics. They give Ruri the drug, and Senku gives her an examination. His diagnosis is pneumonia, and fortunately, that's one that antibiotics are super effective against.
Which means that we won with the power of humanity's science!
Before long, Ruri has made a full recovery, earning Senku the trust of the entire village. He's still not marrying Ruri, but he accepts the role of village chief. The whole village celebrates, but something shocks Senku. See, he actually never heard the name of the village until just now, and when he does, he can't believe it. Ishigami just so happens to be Senku's last name. What in the name of science? Episode 16, A Tale for the Ages. Senku finally asks Ruri to tell him the history of Ishigami Village. Strap in though, because it is a doozy. Remember Senku's cool dad, Byakuya? Well, when Senku was a kid, Byakuya dreamed of being an astronaut. He failed a test where you have to swim while fully clothed and thought his dream was dead. When Senku built his own rocket, he inspired his father. And thanks to some high-tech training from Senku, he eventually passed the swimming test. Byakuya was chosen for a mission to the International Space Station aboard a Russian rocket called the Soyuz. Along with him was American singer Lillian Weinberg and a Russian astronaut named Shamil. When they reached the ISS, they met a Russian couple named Yakov and Daria, and the young American Connie. I'm guessing you can figure out where this headed. After just a few days in space, something very strange happened. They saw the Earth get covered by a brilliant green light and lost all contact with ground control. They logged into live feed cameras and saw everyone had been turned to stone. The Russian couple wanted to stay in space and was worried that they could also turn to stone if they went back to Earth. But Byakuya insisted there's no point in staying in space where they can't do anything. He then decided to attempt a return mission all on his own. Damn! Like father, like son, I guess. Episode 17, 100 Nights and 1,000 Skies. Byakuya deduced that the petrification originated in South America, so that's where he tried to land. Shamil said that since Byakuya has a son, he shouldn't take the dangerous job, so he returned to Earth with Connie and Lillian instead. Miraculously, they did make it back to Earth, but missed their target and ended up in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Byakuya and the Russians followed after them in another shuttle, landed on a nearby island, and rescued them with a rowboat they found. The astronauts were all now reunited, but stranded on this deserted island. 3 years went by and they adapted to life on this island. Connie and Shamil got married, but on their wedding night, Lillian broke down and ran into the forest crying. Byakuya chased after her, and she told him she was terrified that after they were gone, all the music the world ever created would be gone forever. Byakuya told her that he was confident his son Senku was still alive somewhere, and he wasn't wrong, since right at that second, Senku was counting, probably in the tens of millions. Sadly, not long after that, Connie got sick and passed away, leaving behind 2 small children. Shamil got sick too, so the Russian couple decided to attempt a dangerous trip in the rowboat back to the mainland to find medical supplies. They never returned, and left behind 2 children of their own. Once Shamil succumbed to illness, Byakuya and Lillian were the only ones left to look after the kids. Byakuya decided to preserve as much essential information as he could for future generations, so he created the 100 Tales. These simple stories were designed to give them the best chance of survival, and they included survival tips, important resources, and instructions to return to Japan where Senku was. Then, Lillian fell ill, and as soon as Byakuya finished his stories, she died in his arms. This is a whole lot for Senku to take in, but Ruri isn't done yet. She brings Senku to the village cemetery, where an honorary gravestone has been made for Byakuya. Then, Ruri tells Senku the 100th tale, a message directly from Byakuya to his son. Byakuya tells Senku, across thousands of years, that he has faith in him and knows he will somehow bring humanity back. Over time, the kids that Byakuya looked after started to repopulate, until eventually they made it back to Japan and founded Ishigami Village. Now, I don't want to nitpick science during this very touching moment, but it is definitely impossible to repopulate with that few people, and the villagers would realistically be inbred as well. But for plot reasons, we are going to look the other way. Senku sheds some tears thinking about this incredible gift his father left for him, and promises he will bring his dream to fruition. When he gets back to the village, they throw a big party to celebrate their new chief. But it's not time to relax, because Gen finally has a chance to tell Senku the reason he came back. Tsukasa will be coming with an army to invade Ishigami Village. Everyone is terrified, but Senku is pumped up to get a chance to show Tsukasa just how far the Kingdom of Science has come. Finally, here comes the showdown. Episode 18, Stone Wars. Ginro and Kinro are guarding the bridge, and Ginro is naturally whining about missing the celebration. Kinro notices enemies rushing in from the jungle and tells Ginro to go warn the others. Kinro lures his opponents onto the bridge so he can fight them one at a time. He takes out some goons from Tsukasa's empire, but soon he's up against Tsukasa's right-hand man Hyoga, the master spearman. Hyoga stabs Kinro, and the rest of the Science Kingdom show up just in time to watch him fall off the bridge. Kinro is barely hanging on and yells for his brother to cut the bridge, but he can't bring himself to do it. Good thing Senku always has a trick up his sleeve. He uses the last of his gunpowder to create an explosion, and at the same time, magma hurls a rock across the bridge. This makes the invaders think the villagers have guns, and they make a quick retreat. As Hyoga leaves, Senku shouts after him with a message for Tsukasa. Senku is still alive, and the Kingdom of Science will be victorious.
Tell Tsukasa that Ishigami Senku is still alive.
Okay, but are we really letting Magma help now? After he planned to kill a sick girl. I mean, I guess they need all the help they can get, but jeez. Gen continues to pretend to be on Tsukasa's side, and convinces Hyoga that they should attack during a storm since gunpowder won't work in the rain. Thanks to this, Senku can predict exactly when they will attack next. Before then, Senku has another top-secret project that will help them win the next battle. 3 days later, a storm comes. Senku stands on the bridge pretending to have a soggy gun. As soon as Tsukasa's men reach the bridge, they are ambushed by the science team armed with Japanese katanas. Oh, hell yeah! These steel blades are way stronger than simple stone ones, and the Kingdom of Science wins this battle handily. Hyoga's spear breaks in the middle of the battle, and he realizes Gen must have sabotaged it back at their camp. Gen's cover is blown, but it's good to know that the science team can trust a guy who's so shifty. Episode 19, To Modernity, opens with a flashback where we see Hyoga when he first is revived by Tsukasa. As a training exercise to shake off the 3,700 years of rust, Hyoga spars and defeats 10 men at once with his spear. Hyoga seems to fully believe in Tsukasa's mission to create a world ruled by the strongest. Tsukasa is getting really lucky with the people he revives. That, or they aren't showing what happens to the people who disagree with his views. In the present, Hyoga comments that he may have lost, but the battle was really just a distraction. Senku turns around and sees smoke coming from the village. Hyoga's right-hand woman Homura set the village on fire, and everyone is forced to evacuate into the forest. The science team is worried that Hyoga's men will attack the vulnerable villagers, so Suika goes melon mode to lure them away. Then, Kohaku realizes that Suika is rolling right towards the lake of sulfuric acid, and rushes to save her. She and Senku manage to bring Suika a gas mask in the nick of time, while Hyoga's side barely climbs up some trees before they could inhale the poison gas. Senku lies that he made the gas himself and they return to the science base. Hyoga thinks the whole thing might be a bluff and tests it by knocking his men off the tree, where they die instantly. Damn, I don't even think Tsukasa would do that to his own guys. Ishigami Village has won this battle, but they've also lost most of their advantages. Tsukasa now knows that Senku is alive and doesn't actually have any weapons more advanced than swords. On top of that, he knows Gen is a traitor. Senku says the only chance they have now is a preemptive strike before Tsukasa can build a bigger army. And they'll be able to win with the help of one major development, the cell phone. Finally, Senku is bringing back screen addiction. Episode 20, The Age of Energy. Senku explains to everyone how inventing mobile phones will help them win the war. In this stone world, being able to communicate across long distances will provide a huge tactical advantage that will let a weaker force prevail. Senku figures that Tsukasa will launch his own attack as soon as winter ends, so they've just got a few months to gather all the different pieces of a cell phone. First up is wiring, and it just so happens the way you spin fine gold threads is the same way you make cotton candy. Senku heats up and spins sugar crystals to make this treat, and the villagers are all blown away by their first taste of sweets. Gen warns Senku that Homura is lurking in the forest to keep an eye on the science team. That night, Senku leaves out some cotton candy for her. He says that if more people in Tsukasa's camp hear that the other side has modern amenities like candy and ramen, they might think about switching sides. But Ruri thinks that Senku is just a big softie who didn't want Homura to be left out. Senku crafts some gears to improve the thread spinning machine, which gives Chrome an idea of his own. He and Koski work for 3 days with no sleep. And this time, he is confident this will be a new invention that Senku has never even heard of. And it's just a water wheel. Still, it's pretty impressive. Combine it with their hand-powered generator, and the Kingdom of Science now has their own hydroelectric plant. Episode 21, Spartan Crafts Club. The team has got a reliable source of energy, but now they'll need batteries to store it. Along the way, they make a ton of upgrades that'll make getting through winter a whole lot easier, including a water-powered furnace, canned food, and light bulbs. They even make a Christmas tree, and look at that! Santa avoided getting petrified somehow. Okay, let's be real. How could anyone choose Tsukasa's side over the Kingdom of Science at this point? They have freaking Santa on their side! Now that they have light bulbs, Chrome wants to go explore some dark caves to see what kind of treasures he can find. And it's perfect timing, because Senku needs a strong mineral to serve as the filament for their phone's vacuum tubes. Suika finds a rare rock in Chrome's collection that glows in the sunlight, and it's just the one they needed, tungsten. Chrome remembers the cave where he found it, so Chrome and Senku set out on an expedition to go collect some more. The last member of their party is an unexpected one, Magma. They'll need his brute strength to mine tungsten, but is it really a good idea to go into a dark cave with that guy? Episode 22, The Treasure. Before they leave, Gen whispers something in Magma's ear. I'm sure it's either something helpful or something very, very unhelpful. Once they get deep into the cave, the team enters a room where the ground is brittle and gives way to deep pits. Magma shoves Senku and ends up falling into a pit himself, with Senku catching him at the last minute. Chrome tells Senku to drop Magma since he just tried to push Senku in, but he refuses. Then, the ground falls anyway and both fall into the pit. Senku tells Chrome how to create a siphon to pump water from a nearby pool into the pit. While they're waiting for the water levels to rise so they can climb out, Magma admits that he was trying to save Senku with that shove, not kill him. Turns out, this whole science thing is kinda growing on old Magma, and he refuses to let a bully like Tsukasa take over his village. There's only room for one bully in this town, and that's Magma. They make it out of the pit, find the tungsten deposit, and head back to camp with a sackload of super strong metal.
I'm talking about the precious treasure that we call friendship.
You really said that.
That's so lame.
Magma remembers what Gen whispered to him, to make sure Senku gets back within 3 days. When they arrive, there's a surprise waiting for Senku. The rest of the science team figured out that it was Senku's birthday, so they made him his very own observatory, complete with a bamboo telescope. Oh, I desperately need friends like these. Episode 23. Wave of Science. The science team then splits up to finish the last few components for their phone. Old Man Koski gets a sweet moment where he says that this is the first time in his life that he's had real friends. And then he gets even more jacked. I love how this show is simultaneously one of the most grounded anime out there, but also one of the most insane. After a whole lot of intricate crafting and crazy chemistry, the science team has done it. The Stone World's very first cell phone. Hooray! Now, make a lot more of them. Episode 24. Voices over infinite distance. We're at the final episode of Season 1, and everyone in the village is stunned to hear that they'll have to do all that work over again. But what did they think that they'd be able to do with just one cell phone? Play Snake? With just one phone, they're able to use a super long cable and connect it to a speaker far away. When Ruri sees the speaker that Senku makes, she says that something similar was described in one of the 100 tales. Tale number 14 is about a bumblebee who puts its stinger into gravestones to play sound from them. Really? You didn't think that that was a little too specific to just be a story? Senku immediately heads to his father's gravestone and cracks it open. Inside is a glass record with an audio message recorded onto it from the astronauts. The villagers are amazed that science can even allow Byakuya to speak to his son from heaven. When they put it like that, it does seem pretty miraculous. Senku quickly makes a basic record player and puts the needle onto the glass disc. Senku then hears his father's voice for the first time in thousands of years, but Byakuya knows his son isn't into all that mushy crap, so he instead gives him one last gift, a beautiful musical performance by Lillian. The villagers are overwhelmed with their first experience of music, and they start to understand just how much was truly lost when civilization fell. Not just scientific knowledge, but art, literature, music, manga, video games, and much, much more. Everyone is more pumped up than ever to defeat Tsukasa and bring back modern civilization. Man, I know our society has problems, but this show really makes you appreciate what we have. Over in Tsukasa's empire, Taiju and Yuzuriha are still going strong. It's been 1 year since they said goodbye to Senku, but they are confident that he will return and claim victory. The preparations are complete, and now the Stone Wars can finally begin. I'm 10 billion% hyped. Okay, maybe it is growing on me. Season 2, Episode 1. Stone Wars beginning. The next season starts, and we've still got some more preparations to do. What? I thought these were the Stone Wars! Well, not quite. But we'll get there soon, I promise. First, Senku wants to create freeze-dried food for their preemptive wintertime attack. They make a bunch of ramen, dry it in a vacuum, and bam! Instant noodles. Ruri is worried that the approaching battle will be dangerous, but Senku tells her not to worry. This is gonna be one of those nice wars where nobody gets hurt. Yeah. The Kingdom of Science's only objective is to capture the cave where miracle fluid is produced, and Senku has a plan to do that without spilling any blood. It'll involve using the recording Byakuya left behind to trick the Tsukasa Empire into thinking Lillian is still alive. Since she was a global superstar back in the day, the shock of hearing her voice might be enough to get them to abandon their little Lord of the Flies project. And if just hearing the song isn't enough, Gen is able to mimic Lillian's voice in conversation.
Hey, I'm Lillian Weinberg, y'all.
Because he's a really good magician. The next day, they set their plan into motion. Chrome, Magma, and Gen set out with one of the phones. They're going to bring it to Taiju and Yuzuriha, who will secretly try to recruit more people into the Kingdom of Science with Lillian's voice. Senku sets off some explosions to distract Homura, and the cell phone team ships out. Episode 2, Hotline. Homura goes to investigate the explosions and is ambushed by Kohaku. But Homura was an Olympic gymnast in her time, way more agile than any Stone Age warrior. Senku uses a flash grenade to stun Homura and grab her. Seriously, is there anything he can't do? Well, he is so weak that Homura breaks out of his grasp easily. Maybe just stick to the science, buddy. Homura scans the village and realizes 3 people are missing. She runs towards Tsukasa's empire to try and catch them before they can deliver the phone. Fortunately, this is exactly the kind of situation where having long-distance communication comes in clutch. Senku calls up Chrome's team to warn them that Homura is on their trail, and the 2 teams are able to plan a pincer attack to corner Homura. They lure Homura to the top of a tree with a decoy phone, chop it down, and Homura lands right into Kohaku's arms. Looks like they finally got their little gymnast problem under control. Soon enough, Chrome's team reaches the Tsukasa Empire. They first discover a stockpile of statues that Tsukasa is planning to revive. Magma, of course, wants to smash the statues so that Tsukasa can't add them to his army. But Chrome and Gen aren't willing to become as bad as Tsukasa, even if it would give them an advantage. They bury the phone somewhere they know Taiju will find it, right by Senku's gravestone. I mean, everyone knows Senku is alive by this point. But not everyone knows that everyone knows, you know? While burying the phone, Magma is pretty noisy, and this attracts the attention of Tsukasa's master archer Ukyo, a former sonar operator with insanely good hearing. For real, how could Tsukasa possibly have known where to find these statues? Chrome's team thinks that they've gotten away when arrows start flying at them. Oh no! Later, Senku is waiting on the edge of his seat when he suddenly gets a call from his oldest friend, Taiju.
Senku!
Episode 3, Call from the Dead. We all know Senku isn't one for tearful reunions, so he gets right down to business. He fills Taiju and Yuzuriha in on the plan and tells them to start bringing people over to the speaker. Meanwhile, Chrome, Gen, and Magma are pinned down in some bushes by Ukyo. Chrome pulls out a spare battery he was carrying, short-circuits it, and throws it into some tall grass to start a fire and create a smoke screen. But instead of all escaping together, Chrome just has to play the hero. He runs out screaming to get Ukyo's attention. For such a smart guy, Chrome is pretty dumb. Chrome's sacrifice allows Gen to make it back to the science base. He's exhausted, but ready to play the part of Lillian. Their first target from the Stone Empire is Nikki, a tough woman who was tasked with monitoring Taiju and Yuzuriha. Taiju convinces her to hear them out with his pure sincerity, and she begins talking to Lillian Weinberg through the phone. Using the fake voice, Gen lies and says that the USA is fully unpetrified and back to complete working order. Unfortunately, they picked probably the worst person to start with. It turns out, Nikki is a total superfan of Lillian and knows everything about her. She says that if she finds out someone is impersonating her idol, she will find them and end them. Damn! Did not take her for the pop girly type. Nikki asks some questions that only the real Lillian would know the answer to. First, she asks how many records Lillian has sold in total. This is a cakewalk for Senku. He can do these kinds of ballpark calculations in his sleep. He calculates the number based purely on knowing how much Lillian paid for a seat on a spaceship and gets it right. Next, Nikki asks for Lillian's measurements.
I gotta estimate from memory.
Senku happens to know exactly what they are. Don't worry about how he remembers so perfectly, but it was a trick question anyways. The real Lillian would never give out her measurements. As a last-ditch effort, Senku plays Lillian's song from the glass record. Nikki is overcome with emotion, and she decides that even though the real Lillian is long gone, she would rather be on the side that has even just one of her songs. With that, Nikki becomes the first convert to the Kingdom of Science. Now that's a true fan right there. Episode 4. Full steam ahead. Nikki tells Gen she can help him perfect his Lillian impersonation to trick the rest of Tsukasa's empire. But she says it still won't be enough to convince Hyoga or Ukiyo, who are both highly perceptive. Meanwhile, Chrome has been captured by Ukiyo and is brought before Tsukasa. Ukiyo lies about where he found Chrome, seemingly to protect the phone hidden at Senku's grave.
He was at the Miracle Cave, just scouting it out all by himself. I'll bet he's after the nitric acid.
Maybe this Ukiyo isn't such a bad guy after all. Chrome refuses to give up any information about Senku's plan, so Tsukasa throws him inside of a stone jail. Nice going, Tsukasa. You just know that you're creating a utopian society when one of the first things you do is build a prison. When Senku learns of Chrome's capture, he wastes no time in planning a prison break. And if you were disappointed that their big project for the Stone Wars was a cell phone, don't worry. His next project is a literal tank. They melt down honeycomb to create wax and carve it into the shapes of car parts. They then use those to create a mold and create the actual car parts with molten brass, which, for the record, I wouldn't have thought of in a million years. Once they add some bamboo wheels and a steam engine, the Science Kingdom has officially entered the age of transportation. Episode 5. Steam Gorilla. Gen tests out the new car, since he's the only person in this entire kingdom who actually has a driver's license. Though, I would imagine it's pretty expired by now. The wheels make it way too bumpy on the uneven terrain, so they replace them with woven fiber strips and name their tank the Steam Gorilla. The whole science team loads as many resources as they can into the gorilla and starts their family road trip. In no time at all, they've reached the Tsukasa Empire and set up camp on a ridge just outside of it. Suika goes melon mode to do some recon and sees Chrome safe and sound inside his cell. Senku says that the Steam Gorilla will now be able to plow straight into the prison with the help of one more upgrade, carbon fiber armor. It's as easy as making some paper, slathering melted plastic onto it, and stacking a bunch of them together. Everyone has their doubts that paper and plastic will make for a good shield, but it withstands a full force blow from Kinro and shatters his spear completely. Sweet! I'm gonna start making my own carbon fiber and become bulletproof. Just try to shoot me now, Mom! Now, they've got a proper tank on their side, but Tsukasa is more than prepared for it. He's done underestimating Senku and has fully anticipated this vehicular assault. The entire area in front of the prison is one big minefield full of spike traps that the tank will immediately fall into. After that, Senku and his science team will be sitting ducks. Chrome sees this and knows that he is gonna have to break out all on his own in order to save his friends. Episode 6. Prison Break. Getting out isn't going to be easy, since Chrome's warden is Yo, a trigger-happy former police officer who's a bit of a loose cannon. Exactly the kind of stable individual Tsukasa wants in his perfect society. Chrome gathers up some twigs and leaves when the guards take him out to use the bathroom. But even with all of the knowledge Senku has passed on to him, he's no MacGyver. That night, a mysterious figure rolls Chrome's spare battery to him through the bars. He uses it to start a fire on the bamboo bars, but Yo notices immediately. All the guards laugh at Chrome's escape attempt, thinking he is just a primitive caveman rubbing sticks together, but he will show them. Chrome exercises non-stop to generate sweat, and once he has enough, he uses the battery to run electricity through it and create an acidic solution. He pours it on the ropes holding his cage together and runs straight out the front door. Yo starts chasing after him, and soon has Chrome cornered on a cliff. Right as he's about to receive the beating of his life, Chrome starts coughing up fake blood he made from roots and tells Yo that he has pneumonia. Yo does not want to get sick in this doctorless world, so he starts freaking out and gives Chrome the perfect opportunity to launch his signature move.
Here it goes!
Who's the caveman now? Chrome escapes and reaches the science base all on his own. I mean, that's great and all, but now what are they gonna do with their tank? Episode 7, Secret Mission. Taiju and Yuzuriha continue recruiting people to the Kingdom of Science with the fake Lillian. Meanwhile, Senku plans a bloodless assault on the Miracle Fluid Cave. Eventually, Ukiyo hears what's going on by Senku's grave, and Gen's impression doesn't fool his super ears for a second. Senku deduces that Ukiyo must have been the one to slip Chrome the battery while he was in jail, but Ukiyo says he still hasn't decided which side he wants to be on yet. He knows that Yuzuriha has secretly been rebuilding every statue that Tsukasa had destroyed, and is amazed they would go to so much trouble to save a bunch of strangers. He has one condition to join the Kingdom of Science. They beat Tsukasa without anyone dying. Senku agrees, since that was his plan anyways. Ukiyo says that for as brutal as Tsukasa is, he doesn't seem to be a bad person at heart. It's Hyoga that they should really be worried about. Later, Tsukasa gets a report that Ukiyo fell off a cliff and died. In reality, he just didn't want to get in trouble for losing a prisoner, so he faked his own death and left the Stone Empire. Probably best for everyone. Tsukasa visits Senku's grave so that he can pay respects to Yo and discovers the hidden cell phone receiver. But Senku and his team are already in position with the Steam Gorilla, ready to take the cave. Senku tells everyone that he estimates they have 20 seconds to take the cave before blood starts getting spilled, which, in anime terms, is more like 20 minutes, probably? Episode 8. Final battle. The Kingdom of Science launches their assault, and Senku fires an explosive canister from the Steam Gorilla. That was the only shot they had, but now, Tsukasa's men think they're up against a fully functioning tank. The area is covered in anti-vehicle traps, but the woven wheels are capable of driving right over them. The tank finally gets caught in a pit and tips right over in front of the cave's entrance. Magma jumps out and hits the guards with a sonic cannon made from a copper dish. Some of the guards try to escape and warn Tsukasa, but they are stopped by the people that Taiju and Yuzuriha recruited. Then, the science team runs out of bombs to use with their sonic cannon, so all-reliable Taiju uses his own voice to scream into the dish and knock out the remaining guards. The Kingdom of Science has taken the Miracle Cave without spilling a single drop of blood, and it wasn't exactly 20 seconds, but that was pretty damn quick. It isn't over yet though, because very soon, Tsukasa and Hyoga arrive on the scene with backup. Hyoga smashes the jar of chemicals Senku was going to use to make gunpowder, and tells everyone that they've been lied to about Lillian and the USA being back. Things are not looking good for Senku, but his friends have absolute faith that he will figure something out. Kohaku leads the villagers in a charge against Tsukasa and Hyoga to buy Senku more time. Episode 9. To destroy and to save. In this episode, we finally get to see just how much of a menace these two super high schoolers are on the battlefield. Back to back, Tsukasa and Hyoga take on the entire village and are winning handily. Inside the cave, Chrome has managed to find some acid in the wreckage of the Steam Gorilla, and Senku combines it with the Miracle Fluid to create nitroglycerin. Okay, that's a big one. Gen folds some paper airplanes, dips the tip of them in the nitroglycerin, and throws one out over the battlefield. It hits a tree away from the fighters and causes a massive explosion. These guys may be monsters, but they're still no match for dynamite. And with Ukiyo on their side to launch nitro-soaked arrows, this battle is fully over. Tsukasa isn't ready to give up, but Senku has figured out the one thing Tsukasa cares about more than anything else: his younger sister, Mirai. She was very ill and in a coma 3,700 years ago, but Senku says there's a good chance that she'll be fully healed once they undo her petrification. If the Tsukasa Empire surrenders, Senku promises to help find Mirai's statue and bring her back to life. Tsukasa agrees, and they all travel to where Mirai's hospital used to be. With the help of some dynamite to blast it into the ground, they soon find what Tsukasa has truly been looking for this whole time. Episode 10: Humanity's Strongest Tag Team. Senku pours the revival fluid onto Mirai, and it works like a charm. She comes back healthier than she ever was in the modern era. Tsukasa embraces his little sister and thanks Senku. Unfortunately, not everyone is satisfied with this happy ending. Suika discovers that Homura, who they'd been holding captive all this time, has escaped and stolen some dynamite under orders from Hyoga. She blows up the Miracle Cave, which really doesn't help anyone. Tsukasa hears the explosion, and the second his back is turned, Hyoga thrusts his spear at Mirai. Jesus! Nobody has died yet in these stone wars, but Hyoga's making a pretty compelling case why he should be the first. Tsukasa protects his sister with his own body and is stabbed right through the lung.
I was the one who'd been waiting for this moment.
No! Hyoga reveals that ever since he was revived, he's been looking for a way to take down Tsukasa so that he could be the strongest man alive, and having a little sister to protect provided Hyoga the perfect opportunity. He knocks Tsukasa off a cliff, and Senku reaches them just in time to catch his former enemy, but Hyoga knocks down both of them into the water below and jumps down after them. The three of them wash up on shore, with Tsukasa in critical condition. Hyoga shares his philosophy with Senku, which is pretty much Tsukasa's beliefs on steroids. Instead of creating a world where the strong provide for the young and weak, he wants one where the strong provide for themselves and kill everyone else. Hyoga asks Senku to join him, and threatens to torture him until he accepts. Senku throws some rocks at Hyoga pointlessly, but hidden among the rocks are petrified birds that Senku has poured revival fluid onto. They distract Hyoga enough for Tsukasa to get in close and strike him. You didn't think the strongest primate high schooler could be taken down by something like a hole in the lung, did ya? The world's smartest and the world's strongest are officially teamed up again. Tsukasa fights Hyoga while Senku creates gunpowder and scatters it around, but Hyoga just wraps his cloak around his spear and uses it to blow the powder away from him. Then, Hyoga charges right at Senku and hits him in the chest. Right as Hyoga is about to finish Tsukasa for good, Senku crawls his way back and pokes Hyoga with his pinky finger.
I said I could use the power of science to kill you.
Senku is wearing an armor made of batteries and wrapped a wire around his finger, effectively creating a stun gun that knocks Hyoga out cold. Episode 11, Prologue of Dr. Stone. In the final episode of Season 2, Hyoga and Homura are captured, hopefully for good this time. Then, we see everyone from the Kingdom of Science meeting and swapping stories with the members of the former Tsukasa Empire. And considering they were at war until just recently, they seem to be getting along great. They start reviving the people that Yuzuriha Jigsaw puzzled back together, and even let Yo rejoin the kingdom. Not sure this abusive cop has really earned it, but I guess they need the help. Sadly, Tsukasa's wounds are too serious for even Senku to repair, but of course, that doesn't mean Senku is gonna give up. He plans to freeze Tsukasa until they discover the source of the petrification. Then, it will be the simple matter of turning Tsukasa to stone, reviving him, and he should be good as new. Tsukasa agrees to this, as he now trusts Senku completely. Senku repurposes materials from the phones and the steam gorilla to create a refrigerator, and they pop Tsukasa inside. It's just that easy. The Stone Wars are officially over, but there's no time to rest. Senku announces to his team that it's time for the next phase of rebuilding civilization, building a ship to leave Japan and discover what caused the petrification. I mean, whoever is responsible, they couldn't possibly be tougher to beat than Tsukasa and Hyoga, right? Right? Next up, we've got an hour-long special episode to bridge the second and third seasons. It starts out with a fun contest to see who can design the best ship for their scientific expedition, and the contestants are Senku, naturally, plus Magma and Yo. Oh, okay, I think we all know how this is gonna end, but I guess the new world needs entertainment too. Magma's design is actually not too bad, since he's spent his whole life in a fishing village. Much better than Yo's literal pile of sticks. But then, Senku unveils the design they'll actually be using. A huge, intricately crafted ship worthy of Jack Sparrow himself. And with all of Tsukasa's meatheads on their side, construction will only take a year. In the meantime, they'll need to find someone with experience operating and navigating a huge sailboat. For more information, Senku goes to Minami, a former TV reporter that Tsukasa had revived to help him find strong people. That, or he just has a thing for blondes. Minami recommends searching the ruins of a boating school that was on a nearby island. The science team heads there, but since the Miracle Cave was blown up, they don't have much revival fluid and will have to be very selective. They find one statue that Minami says is the last person they should revive, an incredible captain with a terrifying personality. But Senku only cares about a person's skills, so he revives the dude right there. This is Ryusui Nanami, the spoiled heir to the ultra-wealthy Nanami conglomerate. He lived a life of luxury, sailing around the world in his own custom yacht. Ryusui immediately assesses the situation and realizes all the wealth his family had is useless in this world. But instead of being bummed about it, he's pumped about the opportunity to claim all the world for himself and become even richer than before. Now, this is a guy with a true grind set mindset. While he may be a spoiled rich kid, his skills are legit. Hell, he might even be a better navigator than Nami. He tells Senku that the journey will be too long and dangerous if they rely on the wind alone, so they'll have to find an oil field. Ryusui demands that as his payment for piloting the ship, he wants to own any of the oil that they find, just so he can sell it back to Senku at a high price. Yeah, this guy's been alive for 10 minutes and he's already reinvented capitalism. Ryusui starts printing his own currency called Dragos, and before long, he's got a functioning economy, with people performing labor in exchange for money to buy cotton candy and ramen. Hey, that's mostly what I spend my money on. Anyways, the terrain has changed so much over the thousands of years that Senku's knowledge of Japan is now useless in finding an oil field. They're gonna have to do this the old-fashioned way, creating a hot air balloon and scouting from the skies. Okay, so not that old-fashioned. Senku, Ryusui, and Chrome go up into the air, and Chrome is speechless, since he's never seen the Earth from this point of view. Soon, they get sucked into a terrifying storm, but thanks to Ryusui's top-tier piloting, they escape by rising all the way above the clouds. Season 3, Episode 1, New World Map. In the first episode of Season 3, the Kingdom of Science is still on the hunt for fuel. They may have survived their first balloon trip, but Senku estimates it'll take at least a year of searching to find the oil fields. They methodically begin searching Japan in a grid, while Chrome and Ukiyo create a map of the new terrain on the ground. In the meantime, there's plenty else that needs to get done to restart civilization. They can't start reviving more people until they have a more stable food supply, so that means it's time for agriculture to shine. They hold another contest to see who can grow the most wheat. Magma and Yo think this is their fair chance for redemption after losing the boat design contest, but Taiju beats them both easily by using calcium carbonate as fertilizer. Remember the crushed up seashells from all the way back in Season 1? Senku tries making bread from the wheat, but it comes out as a burnt, crumbly mess. The people from Ishigami Village are still amazed by it, but everyone from the modern era can't even stomach it. Senku decides their next mission needs to be reviving a professional chef, and Ryusui knows just the right person for the job. Episode 2, Desire is Noble. The Kingdom of Science used the last of their revival fluid on Ryusui, but he has a suspicion that at least one person must be hiding some for their own use. Since Minami, the reporter, was the person choosing who got revived, she's the most likely to have stashed away a dose. Gen bluffs that Senku can invent a camera in exchange for the fluid, and she agrees. Poor Minami. There's no way they could create a camera in this stone world. What am I saying? This is Senku we're talking about. Of course he can. First though, they're reviving a master chef named Francois, who just so happened to be Ryusui's personal butler. How convenient for him. Francois is a consummate professional who gets back to butlering without skipping a beat. Francois is one of those great, deep characters whose backstory, nationality, and even gender are all a complete mystery. They're here to buttle and do nothing else. Francois bakes the perfect bread for a long sea voyage, a sweet bread made with goat milk. If the villagers thought Senku's burnt bread was good, this stuff sends them to heaven. Minami reminds Senku that he owes her a camera, but he was planning to make one anyway to help on their scouting trips. He gets some help from Kasuki, who has had a complete makeover thanks to Minami.
Your clothes! Looking good, I know. I'm thinking about sticking with this style from here on out.
Senku dips glass into a chemical solution to create a mirror and uses that to make a daguerreotype camera, the first kind of photographic process ever invented. Minami cries tears of joy and promises to document their scientific adventures from here on out. She commemorates the occasion by taking a picture of Senku doing the famous tongue sticking out pose that Einstein did. No shade, but with what Senku has achieved, he makes Einstein look like a chump. Episode 3, First Contact. This episode is mostly just another resource gathering one. But don't worry, we'll be getting back to some real plot real soon. Francois and Suika are working together to make some luxury meals. They start by capturing boars to make a pig farm, then start using a boar to search for truffles. This gives Senku the great idea to use a boar to search for oil, which honestly, he should have thought of sooner. Rare L for Senku. They soon find the Sagara oil fields, and Suika names the boar Sagara in honor of it. They harvest the oil, and Senku makes a small motorboat to test their engine. Using a massive radio tower, they're even able to speak with the mainland and create a sort of basic GPS. But right as Ruri is about to confess her feelings to Chrome over the radio, they intercept a mysterious signal. Damn! Anytime someone is about to confess their feelings in this show, you know something is about to go down. The signal is just the same message in Morse code repeated over and over. Just 3 letters. W, H, and Y. Spelling out why. According to Senku, there is only one person who could be responsible for this transmission, and that's the mastermind behind humanity's petrification. Episode 4, Eyes of Science. Everyone is freaked out by this transmission, except for Senku, who is just getting more excited. They decide to call the petrification mastermind Y-Man. Not the most fantastic nickname, but we'll roll with it. Then, Senku does some complicated science stuff to create a radar that can point them in the direction the transmission is coming from. This gives Chrome the idea to use that same radar technology to locate more iron for their ship. Bro basically invents a metal detector all by himself. Common W for Chrome. By the end of the episode, they've got asphalt roads, minecarts, railroads. The kingdom of science is looking more and more like our own world. Episode 5, Science Vessel Perseus. It took 1 whole year, but the ship is finally finished. They name it the Perseus, and after careful consideration of who should come along on the journey, they decide on every named character except for Ruri, Ginro, and Suika. They even bring the imprisoned Hyoga and Homura along since they'd be too dangerous for the NPCs to handle on their own. Ginro is too cowardly to come along, but as the ship sails away, he dives in the water and tries to swim after it. Of course, this is just a ploy to look cool, he hasn't actually changed his mind, but Taiju sees him in the water and hauls him aboard. Great, the whole gang is here, including the perv. Episode 6, Treasure Box. Before they head in the direction of the mastermind, they have one stop to make first. the island where Senku's father first returned to Earth, where the space capsule Soyuz still remains. Senku says there is something inside the Soyuz that will allow them to create an unlimited amount of revival fluid. Ooh, could it be a plot device? Nah, it's just platinum, a catalyst that can produce as much nitric acid as they want. Byakuya brought a bunch of rare minerals along with him, and they're just waiting in the Soyuz to be plundered. Then, one of the Perseus crew members asks to speak to Senku. This is No Name, or at least that's what I'm going to call him, because he literally doesn't have a name. He's from Ishigami Village and has been lurking in the background all this time, waiting to become a character, I guess. No Name reveals to Senku that while he was raised in Ishigami Village, it wasn't his birthplace. As a baby, he was found in a basket that washed up on shore. Wanting to fit in with the villagers, he abandoned his original name, which was Soyuz. That's right, he was born on the very island they're traveling to, which means it almost certainly isn't deserted. So you're telling me a baby in a basket floated across the ocean, happened to wash up in the only village left on Earth, and somehow remembered his own name? Doesn't sound very scientific to me, but sometimes you gotta bend things for the plot. Episode 7, Ray of Despair, Ray of Hope. Pretty soon, the Perseus reaches their target island. They form a scouting team of Senku, Kohaku, Gen, and Soyuz, and after they leave, Ryusui finds Suika hiding aboard the ship. Of course, there's no show without Suika. Then, they find some petrified humans underneath the ship, but since this island was uninhabited until after the petrification, there shouldn't be any statues here. Weird. When the scouting team turns around to look at their ship, they are horrified to see every person aboard has been turned to stone. Suika is the only one remaining, thanks to Ryusui pushing her overboard right before the attack. It's still unclear what the source of the petrification is, but it's clearly in the control of the islanders. This causes Soyuz to remember that when he left this island as a baby, it was because his parents were running away from something. Uh-oh, now they really need to find that platinum. Senku finds some discarded seashells and uses crazy forensic science to determine they came from a young woman living inland. Damn! He's Einstein and Sherlock Holmes. They follow the woman's trail and soon come upon Amaryllis, a beautiful young woman being proposed to by 3 men. It seems that Amaryllis is a natural at manipulating men. She rejects them all, saying that tomorrow she will have to become the master's bride, and anyone who defies the master gets petrified. The 3 men run away, and Senku decides this is their best chance to get closer to this master. Just then, they overhear a commotion coming from Amaryllis's village. A group of the men there are tired of their women being taken away, and want to revolt against the master. The last thing Senku wants right now is attention from the master, so he straight up uses tear gas on these guys. Amaryllis is impressed by this chemical warfare and asks Senku to team up with her to take down the master. Episode 8, Ace in the Hole on the Science Vessel, opens with a flashback. When Amaryllis was a child, her family broke the island's rules by taking a boat out to sea. While they were on the water, they were pursued by the master's top guards, Mose and Kirisame. Kirisame threw something at them that emitted the green light and turned her family to stone. The light stopped right in front of Amaryllis, letting her escape back to the island. Apparently, the master has told everyone that the petrification is a magical power he has, but Amaryllis knows it's actually the work of a mysterious device. Back in the present, Amaryllis is telling this story to Senku's team. She was planning to get close to the master to steal the device for herself, which is why she's been training her whole life to manipulate men. In fact, Senku is the first guy she's met who's immune to her beauty. Maybe if you were made of uranium, he'd be more interested. Anyway, the master's guards are coming tomorrow to pick new wives for him, so they decide to try and get Kohaku chosen as well.
Ha! Why didn't I think think of that. So all I need to do is be chosen as one of the cutest girls in the selection process.
Senku and Gen decide to give Kohaku a science makeover to improve her chances. But I feel like she's got a good shot already. In order to create some makeup though, they'll need to get materials from Senku's lab aboard the Perseus. Unfortunately, it's now crawling with guards. The master's top guy, Minister Ibara, is inspecting all of Senku's inventions and thinking they will make great gifts for the master. When Kohaku sees Ibara smashing Chrome's statue, she gets enraged and charges towards the ship. Kirisame sees her and attacks with a flurry of kicks. Kohaku shouts to any surviving allies, "We need the lab." Then, to get out of trouble, they pretend that the lab is Senku's name, and they're actually just innocent villagers who snuck over here to smooch. All this for some lipstick? We then find out that Ginro also avoided petrification and is currently hiding in a barrel on the ship. He hears Kohaku yelling for the lab and knows it's up to him and Suika to get it off the ship. Great, a coward and a child. What could possibly go wrong? Episode 9, Beauty Science. Ginro is at first just trying to escape with his brother's statue, but when he sees Suika bouncing around to create a distraction for him, he feels so guilty that he has to go get Senku's mobile lab. Thanks to the lab's camouflage cover, the islanders think it's a wild beast that escaped the ship. Ginro and Suika both escape and reunite with Senka's team. With the lab, they're now able to create shampoo, makeup, and perfume, and for good measure, they give a makeover to an unwilling Ginro, who'll be going undercover as well. Again, what could go wrong? The next day, Ibara and Maz arrive at Amaryllis' village to select women. All 3 of our undercover beauties are chosen to become some of Master's new wives. Kohaku nearly breaks Ibara's fingers when he gets a little handsy, but Maz stops her. He can tell how strong Kohaku is, but lets her get chosen anyway so he can get a chance to fight her later. Everyone's got a type! Episode 10, Science Wars. It's time for the infiltration to begin. Senku even used some wicked science to create a rudimentary earpiece that can be used to talk to Kohaku. They plan to snatch the petrification device at the one moment it's most vulnerable, right after it gets thrown. In order to do that without all becoming statues, they'll tackle maybe their craziest project yet and build a drone. Meanwhile, the undercover team are brought to the inner palace, where they'll be groomed for a week before meeting the master. Amaryllis distracts the guards while Kohaku searches around. Then, Senku sends an RC card disguised as a rat over to Kohaku as a way for her to deliver messages back to the science team. Unfortunately, Kohaku doesn't know how to read or write. I guess that wasn't very high on the list of scientific priorities. The RC car brings back a crude drawing, but Gen is able to deduce what Kohaku was trying to tell them.
Found it. Platinum.
She found the platinum. Episode 11, With This Fist, a Miracle. The treasure box they've been seeking is hidden at the inner palace, encased inside a stone shell. Senku mixes up a solution that can break apart the shell silently, and delivers it to Kohaku with his mouse-mobile. Inside the shell appears to be a broken jar full of sand, but Kohaku doesn't know what platinum looks like, so she sends as much sand as she can back to Senku. It turns out to be mostly gold dust, but there's enough platinum particles mixed in for them to make as much revival fluid as they want. Senku thanks his father for this final gift and starts making a plan to revive his friends on the Perseus. Meanwhile, Ibara discovers that Soyuz has been broken into and knows the inner palace has been infiltrated. Episode 12, The Kingdom of Science Strikes Back. Our science team has finally got a way to make revival fluid, but it's gonna take a while to have enough for the whole crew. They first want to revive Koski, since his craftsman skills are needed to make the drone. When they return to the Perseus, they see the island guards chucking all the statues into the ocean, so there's a change of plans. In order to pull off a diving mission to retrieve the statues, they'll first have to revive expert seaman Ryusui. In order to draw out the infiltrators, Minister Ibara brings Ryusui's statue to the inner palace. He asks each of the women to smash his statue one by one to prove they aren't working with him. Kohaku surprises everyone by smashing him up into a bunch of tiny pieces, but that's just going to make it easier to smuggle the pieces out with the rat cars. Bit by bit, the science team painstakingly rebuilds Ryusui until he's whole again. After that, Ryusui becomes the first person to ever be turned to stone and revived twice. Bad ass! Senku builds some oxygen tanks, and then Ryusui and Soyuz head down to retrieve Kosuke. Ryusui follows the ocean currents to find the old man's statue, but it's stuck in the sand on the sea floor. Without much oxygen left, Ryusui has the brilliant idea to revive Taiju while still underwater, then have Taiju use brute strength to free Kosuke. Taiju understands the situation perfectly and frees Kosuke without another word.
Yo, Kosuke.
Oh yeah, the team is all coming together. Episode 13, The Medusa's True Face. We're going back to full-on crafting mode. Taiju and Ryusui keep diving to retrieve the other statues, while Senku and Kosuke work on the drone. A week passes, and eventually, the undercover team can't stall meeting the master any longer. The first beauty he wants to meet with is Ginro. Hey, can't blame him. Then, Maz tells Kohaku that he knows she is the one who broke into the Soyuz. Uh-oh. Ginro is brought to the master's hut, where Ibara tells him that all the women need to satisfy the minister before they can meet the master. Ew. We've had some bad guys on this show, but nobody is as downright disgusting as Ibara. Unfortunately, Ginro came prepared with a gas bomb from Senku hidden in a pineapple. Ginro neutralizes Ibara with it and then peeks behind the curtain where the master is. Inside is a petrified man who looks a lot like Soyuz. It turns out Ibara took over the island long ago and is only pretending to be serving the master. Ibara then recovers from the gas attack and attacks Ginro. In the village, Kohaku and Mose begin fighting, but the Science Kingdom's strongest fighter is outmatched. Damn! If only Tsukasa wasn't a popsicle right now. Ginro tries to flee towards Kohaku, but he gets stabbed through the chest by Ibara and falls into Kohaku's arms. Surprisingly, the most whiny character actually gets a pretty impressive death scene. But come on. People don't die in this show. Kohaku starts shouting to everyone that the master is a statue, which forces Kirisame to use the petrification device on her and Ginro. In her last seconds, Kohaku sees the petrification device up close. It's a small yet complex machine, not some magical trinket. She names it the Medusa. Episode 14, Deal Game, Test of Wit. Back in their cave hideout, Senku has made enough revival fluid to bring back Chrome, Yuzuriha, and Ukyo. I mean, that's pretty much everyone important. Then, Amaryllis arrives, having fled the palace to tell Senku of Kohaku and Ginro's fate. But she wasn't especially careful, and Maz followed her all the way back. Senku has figured out there must be a reason why Maz didn't blow Kohaku's cover immediately, and it's because he wants to take out Ibara to rule the village himself. Senku offers to team up and says if they work together they can stop Ibara. Then, they'll give Maz the device and let him rule the island however he wants. This is, of course, a lie, but Maz agrees, and the Science Kingdom outfits him with an earpiece and high-tech spear. He returns to the palace in disguise and begins causing chaos to try and provoke Ibara into using the Medusa. Episode 15, Battle in 3 Dimensions. Senku and his team prepare for the operation to snatch the Medusa, since they know Maz will likely turn on them once Ibara is taken care of. Senku builds a pistol. He feels kinda bad about reintroducing guns into the world, but since they can heal any injury with the Medusa, it's kinda worth it. Their rudimentary drone isn't capable of flying with much precision, so their plan is to basically get it tangled up in the Medusa's rope and fly away with it. Once everything is ready, Maz lures Kirisame and the guards up to the ambush site on a cliff. Here we go! Episode 16, Total War. A group from the science team is waiting at the ambush site, dressed like raiders. Kirisame throws the Medusa, but before Ryusui can pilot the drone to catch it, he realizes something is off. That clever bastard Ibara had stolen Kohaku's earpiece from her statue and overheard the entire plan. What Kirisame just threw wasn't the Medusa, but a decoy. Ibara, meanwhile, is stealing the Perseus with all the islanders on board so that he can petrify the entire island from a safe distance. Damn! Did this creep really just outsmart Senku? Not quite. Senku figures all this out pretty quickly and devises his own plan. If they can steal the master's statue and show it to the islanders on the Perseus, they'll probably turn against Ibara. The new master will be the only living relative of the old one, Soyuz. Meathead Magma has a plan of his own, which is to steal the pistol and try to shoot Ibara.
Why you gotta look so cool, though?
You know, I'd forgotten how bloodthirsty Magma is at heart. Half the team go to retrieve the statue, while the others chase down Magma to try and stop him from wasting all of their bullets. The statue team reaches Master's hut, but find that Ibara destroyed the statue before he left. Soyuz has another memory from when he was a baby and knows that this man was for sure his father. They scramble to put the pieces back together, but Yuzuriha can tell they're so eroded that they will never be able to revive him. Meanwhile, Senku and his team have caught up to Magma at the Perseus. Episode 17, Joker. At this point, the plan has pretty much completely fallen apart. First, the gun falls into the ocean. So there goes that trump card, and Maz has completely forgotten their temporary alliance, so he and Ibara chase the science team into the lower decks of the Perseus. They're not cornered though. This is exactly where Senku wanted to be, the room where Hyoga was kept prisoner. He revives the madman and just prays he doesn't choose to side with the islanders. Hyoga asks Maz what he believes in, and Maz responds that he only really cares about being surrounded by beautiful women. Not quite the lofty ideals Hyoga was looking for, so for now, he'll stick with the kingdom of science. Hyoga takes Kinro's gold spear and attacks Maz. Senku's team takes this opportunity to leave the ship and head back to the island. Then, Kirisame arrives on the Perseus, bringing the real Medusa to Ibara. Also, Maz is overpowering Hyoga pretty easily, so I'm not sure even Tsukasa could beat him. Just then, the statue retrieval team arrives and shows everyone the statue of the true master. Kirisame turns on Ibara immediately, but he uses the Medusa on her before she can do anything. Turns out, all you have to do to activate it is to say out loud the range for the blast, and how many seconds before it activates. It's like an evil Siri! Then, an unlikely hero steps up. Policeman Yo finds the gun in the water and shoots Ibara's hand, causing him to drop the Medusa overboard. Hey! Good save, cop! Episode 18, Flicker of Doom. Now, the Medusa is in Yo's hands, but he has no idea how to activate it. Ibara is after him, and he's all out of bullets. Hyoga is almost beaten, mostly because Kinro's spear isn't the flexible kind he's used to. Hyoga flees the ship and runs towards Senku, trusting that he will have some kind of plan. And sure enough, Senku has created a flexible Kurayari spear that Hyoga uses to finally beat Maz.
Hyoga! Damn you! To hell with you and your spirit sorcery!
Spear of sorcery, you say?
Thank God! Honestly, it would have been embarrassing if science lost to this one random islander. Back at the ship, Ibara activates the Medusa with his voice while Yo is still holding it, and ends up petrifying Yo. He takes the Medusa back, sets it to petrify the whole island in 15 minutes, and forces his guard Orashi to swallow it. That's a loyal guard! He sends Orashi to the center of the island, and when Senku's team sees him, they chase after. They catch up to Orashi just in time, but they don't have a way to get the Medusa out of his stomach fast enough. Ibara watches from a safe distance as the entire island, with every member of the Science Kingdom on it, gets covered in the petrifying light. Everything is quiet as Ibara returns to the island. Since he doesn't know how to revive people, I guess he'll have to live here alone for the rest of his life. But hey, a win is a win. Ibara sees the frozen science team all standing in a straight line with their fists up in the air, but he just ignores it. He smashes Orashi's statue to get the Medusa from inside, but then he notices some fresh footprints. He follows them all the way back to Senku's mobile lab and enters it to only find a speaker. Then, Senku tries to activate the Medusa himself through the phone, but the speaker is far too far away to work. Senku somehow managed to avoid petrification, but it's still anyone's game. I'm 10 billion% betting on Senku though. Episode 19, Last Man Standing. Senku reveals to Ibara how he beat the Medusa. He had all his friends stand in a line and throw up their arms as soon as the light hit them, so that Senku could calculate exactly how fast the light moves. With that, he was able to throw a bottle of revival fluid up in the air at just the right time. A second after he was turned to stone, the bottle landed on him and brought him right back. If it were me, I would have just laid down in a puddle of the revival fluid and waited, but this way is more cinematic. Ibara still thinks he's won since he still has the Medusa, but this is a true scientist he's up against. Senku has already modified the mobile lab to be self-driving, so he activates it to run over Ibara from a distance. Senku picks up the Medusa, but Ibara jumps out and stabs his arm. Turns out, he was wearing body armor made out of a giant seashell, which is pretty cool to be honest. Now, Ibara has the Medusa and tries to use it on Senku. But you silly fool, that was the real plan all along. Senku had already revived Ryusui, who was waiting with the drone.
Ha ha! I want everything this world has to offer! So I absolutely want the shiny super tech of the Medusa!
We couldn't just abandon the awesome drone plan. Ryusui tangles the drone in the Medusa's rope, but Ibara ends up winning the tug of war. He gets the Medusa back again and petrifies Ryusui. Man, this old man is tenacious. In the end, Ibara realizes that Ryusui used his last moments to hook one of the wireless earpieces onto the Medusa. Senku activates it, and finally, the power that Ibara had abused for so long is used to turn him to stone, once and for all. Episode 20, First Dream. With the battle over, Senku revives Chrome and the two work on making enough revival fluid to bring back the entire island. Well, everyone except Ibara, of course. They revive Kirisame and explain how Ibara had been tricking them for years. Soyuz is the master's son and therefore the rightful ruler of the island. So Kirisame and all the other island guards agree to stop fighting. Man, how convenient was it that they just happened to have the king by birthright on their ship? After waking up, Senku tries to call Ruri back in Japan to report on how things are going, but their call is interrupted suddenly by another transmission from Y-Man. It's a voice message this time instead of just Morse code, but strangely, the voice unmistakably belongs to Senku. What? Are they up against Senku's evil twin here? Nah, Ukiyo's incredible hearing allows him to confirm that the voice is computer generated, but still spooky. Y-Man tries to activate the Medusa remotely, giving it a range of over 12 million meters, enough to petrify the entire Earth again. Kohaku is quick enough to move the Medusa away from the speaker so it doesn't activate. This confirms that Y-Man is definitely hostile, but it still raises plenty more questions. Can we get a new character with some answers in here? While reviving islanders, Taiju finds a statue that is hundreds of years old, someone who can explain just how the Medusa came to this island. This is Matsukaze, a loyal samurai type. He tells everyone that life on the island used to be peaceful, which might have had something to do with the fact that they were all related to each other. One day, dozens of Medusas rained from the sky and turned most people on the island to stone. Afterwards, the survivors threw all of the Medusas into the ocean except for one, which was kept in the protection of the island's master. And that lasted right up until Ibara betrayed the master, then Soyuz had to flee the island. Also, apparently, Ginro looks exactly like the master that Matsukaze served hundreds of years ago, so he pledges eternal loyalty to Ginro. It's a fun fun bit. Hearing that the Medusas came from the sky seems to confirm a hunch that Senku already had. He does some science to triangulate exactly where Y-Man's transmission is coming from, and that triples confirms it. Y-Man's location and the Kingdom of Science's next destination is the moon. Senku is going to space? Episode 21, Treasure Island. The Kingdom of Science says farewell to all their new islander friends, and as a sort of foreign exchange program, Kirisame and Matsukaze will go with them on the Perseus, while Soyuz stays behind to be a kind ruler like his dad was. Meanwhile, Senku is finally getting a little bit emotional, thinking about how much his father has given him and how he is following in his footsteps by going to space. They say this is a show about science, but in reality, it's a show about dads. The science team then returns to Japan with the Medusa in hand, ready to petrify and revive their old pal, Tsukasa. Episode 22, Beyond the New World. Tsukasa is brought back good as new, and he gets to have a beautiful reunion with his little sister. He's a bit surprised to hear that Senku wants him to go to the moon, but he's all in. After all, he owes Senku big time at this point. Also, after petrifying Tsukasa, the Medusa seems to run out of juice. It's definitely a machine and not magic, but the technology is so advanced that it's not like anything Senku has seen before. So he doesn't even know how they could possibly recharge it. So Ibara used it with no problem for years, but the second Senku gets it, the thing just dies? Talk about terrible timing. Anyway, before they can make a rocket, the Kingdom of Science is going full-on Civilization 5 to save humanity. They'll sail around the world, reviving people in every continent and getting them started on re-establishing their own cities. Their first stop is America, where they can start growing huge amounts of corn. With a lot of corn, they can produce alcohol to make unlimited revival fluid and food to sustain a larger population. USA! USA! The season ends with the Kingdom of Science, now with new allies and control over the Medusa, ready to take on their next mission. Honestly, they're getting kinda OP. Also, if you're wondering what happened to Hyoga and Maz, I am too. The show kinda forgot about them, but let's just assume they're statues in a prison somewhere. Season 4, Episode 1, Ryusui vs. Senku. The first episode of Season 4 kicks off with the next expedition to America in full swing. But Captain Ryusui is having a bit of a disagreement with Senku. Senku wants to take a shorter route to America that will only take 40 days, but Ryusui says it's too dangerous for a crew that doesn't have much sailing experience. He wants to take a longer 70-day route, but Senku wants to start growing corn before the winter hits. Since neither of them are willing to back down, they settle things with a friendly poker game. Gen would much prefer the easier trip, so he helps Ryusui to cheat at cards. Everyone knows he's cheating, but I guess they're playing by Derby rules where cheating is allowed as long as you don't get caught.
If he's been setting it up this whole time, all 4 of them have to be aces. The strongest 4 of a kind.
Gen manages to switch Ryusui's cards out with 4 aces, and he goes all in. Senku meets his bet and reveals a royal straight flush. Apparently, he marked certain cards with lacquer and used Kohaku's eagle eyes to pick out the ones he wanted. Never try to out-cheat a scientist. With Senku's victory, it's decided that they'll be taking the more dangerous route, but now that the crew has been introduced to the joys of gambling, they don't even seem that worried. Ryusui sets up a casino on the top deck, and everyone plays the night away. Ukiyo thinks that the whole poker game may have just been a ruse to put the crew at ease about the dangerous trip, and if it was, it worked like a charm. Episode 2, Science Journey. Senku and Francois whip up some beer and cocktails for the crew to make the journey more fun. Damn! Is this a scientific expedition or a pleasure cruise? The warriors on board do some combat training, and hey, Hyoga's back! Now that they have Tsukasa to keep him in check, they revive the Spearman and ask him to help with training. He agrees on the condition that they also revive Maz and Homura, which Senku does. Sure, just revive everyone who's tried to kill Senku. What could go wrong? After a long 40 days of sailing, crafting, and training, the Kingdom of Science reaches America. Episode 3, Light Trap in the Darkness. After that long at sea, everyone is super excited to finally put their feet on solid ground and to find some fresh meat. They begin exploring in the ruins of California, and after hunting down some wild alligators, Francois whips up a batch of delicious gator burgers for everyone.
For your enjoyment, I present Crocodile Burgers.
Okay, that actually looks even better than a Krabby Patty. Tsukasa finds corn in one of the gator's stomachs, meaning that there must already be a cornfield growing nearby. This day just keeps getting better! However, unbeknownst to them all, they are being watched by a terrifying camouflaged figure with glowing pink eyes. That night, Tsukasa smells gunpowder in the air and reacts just fast enough to save everyone from a hail of machine gun fire. Oh, shoot! Pun intended. There goes the whole science advantage thing. They flee in the mobile lab down the river, but it seems that whoever planted the corn here might be even more technologically advanced than the Kingdom of Science. First we had Science versus Stone, then Science versus Medusa, now Science versus Science? I'm all in. Episode 4, Dr. X. Senku deduces that whoever they're up against must be another scientist who revived on their own like Senku. Their escape is short-lived, as they are quickly pursued by an armed propeller plane. Yikes! Even Senku hasn't made an airplane yet! The plane fires at them, but Senku quickly whips up some acetylene gas and has Kirisame throw it at the plane. The gas gets sucked into the engine and causes the plane to crash into the forest. This round goes to Senku's team. The Kingdom of Science cautiously heads to where the plane crashed. The pilot, a heavily armored American soldier, has already abandoned the ship. Senku claims the plane's wreckage for himself and sends a small team of Chrome, Gen, and Kohaku to follow the pilot's footprints back to his base. Gen can sense that this might be a trap, so he tells Chrome and Kohaku to wait while he goes on ahead. And soon enough, Gen finds himself staring right down the barrel of a machine gun. Gen surrenders and is taken to their base, a futuristic outpost with a massive cornfield. Gen sees tractors, cows, and a hangar full of planes. So these guys are super advanced, but either they haven't figured out how to revive everyone, or they just don't want to. Considering that they're the shoot-first types, I'm guessing it's the second choice. Then, Gen is introduced to the top brass of this little town. The soldier that brought him here is Stanley Snyder, a former tough military officer, and the leader is Dr. Zeno Houston Wingfield, a man whose character design is just as insane as his name.
It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Gen is hooked up to a rudimentary lie detector and interrogated by these two intimidating men. Our mentalist is skilled enough to beat a lie detector and pretends that he wants to defect from the Kingdom of Science over to Dr. Zeno's side. When they ask Gen to name the leader of the Kingdom of Science, he bluffs and says that their chief scientist is Dr. Taiju. Looks like Taiju just got a very unwanted promotion. Episode 5. Doctor versus Doctor. We're back aboard the Perseus, where the science team gets a call on their radio from Dr. Zeno. He asks to speak to Dr. Taiju, and the big oaf wastes no time in adopting his new role. Dr. Zeno reveals that they've figured out nitric acid can be used to revive statues, but it only works on statues that maintained brain activity the whole time they were petrified. They still haven't figured out the right formula to revive anybody. So that's the one advantage Senku's team still has. Dr. Zeno offers to let them live and work for him if they give up the formula, but Taiju refuses. Since negotiations have failed, Senku's next plan is to fix up the plane they recovered and convert the Perseus into an aircraft carrier they can take off from. They assume it's only a matter of time before Zeno sends soldiers in more armed boats and planes, so they've gotta build faster than ever before. Unfortunately, Dr. Zeno has a different plan. Instead of an all-out assault, he's sending Stanley alone to assassinate Dr. Taiju. Senku anticipates this possibility, so he sends his elite squad of Tsukasa, Hyoga, Ukiyo, and Suika to go capture Dr. Zeno. Hold on, 3 warriors and a child. One of these things is not like the others. Episode 6, Science is Elegant. Stanley is ready to carry out the assassination with the help of his assistant Luna. Luna is a pretty, airheaded, hopeless romantic, and while she is helping to kill someone, it's not like she's had much choice in the matter. Her job is to pose as someone escaping Dr. Zeno's camp, get on board the Perseus, and find out which one is Taiju. Then, she'll signal to Stanley, who will snipe Taiju from a distance. Man, these villains really outdo each other every season. Senku knows immediately that Luna is likely a spy, but brings her aboard anyway with a plan of his own. Right as she's about to point out Taiju to Stanley, Senku begins seducing Luna. And it works. Apparently, super brainy guys are exactly her type, and Senku knew that because of science? Senku invents ice cream to seal the deal and win Luna over to the Kingdom of Science. She tells Senku that Dr. Zeno always says science is elegant, and Senku is stunned. See, he used to know a guy who said that exact thing, but he only ever knew him as Dr. X. Yeah, Dr. Zeno is a NASA scientist and Senku's former mentor. I did not see that coming. Episode 7, The Two Scientists. We see a flashback showing the relationship between Senku and Dr. Zeno. When Kid Senku was trying to build his own rocket, he reached out to rocket scientists all over the world through email to ask for advice. This got the attention of Dr. Zeno, who was impressed by the intelligence of this grade schooler. The two quickly became online pen pals, bonding over their shared love of science. At one point, Senku visited his father at NASA and was face to face with Zeno, but neither of them said anything to each other. Guess he's not the sentimental type, but Zeno feels really bad when he realizes he's been trying to kill his former student. Or maybe not? He does seem to be genuinely kinda evil. One day at NASA, someone just randomly asks Dr. Zeno what he would ever do if he were sent back to the Stone Age. You know, a normal hypothetical question that we ask each other all the time. He responds that he would invent guns and become a dictator over all living beings. Okay, wow, saying the quiet part out loud, are we? Huh? Byakuya happened to be there and responded that if Zeno tried to become a dictator, a rival scientist would probably appear and try to shake him down. It would probably be someone exactly like my son Senku. Okay, this is a little too on the nose, even by anime standards. Episode 8, Lock On. The flashback continues in the next episode, showing us when Dr. Zeno first awoke. When the petrification came, Zeno was attending a White House briefing with Stanley and some other elite soldiers. Right as the green light appeared, he warned everyone to try and remain conscious for as long as possible. Over time, their statues were washed away to an area with acidic soil, and eventually, Zeno broke out of his own stone shell. He revived Stanley and the other soldiers, and thanks to a platinum ring one guy had, they were able to easily make a ton of gunpowder. Zeno stayed true to his words, and in this stone world, he quickly became a dictator of his own little empire. Back in the present, Luna has decided not to point at Taiju and get his head blown off, but she does mouth to Stanley that there is someone named Senku here who seems to know Zeno. This gets reported back to Dr. Zeno, who is shocked to learn his old pen pal is the one he's fighting. At first, he tells Stanley to hold his fire, but then he says, nah, we gotta kill this kid. Sheesh. Stanley soon has Senku narrowed down to 3 people based on his height and age, though I would have just looked for the green hair. Ryusui realizes something is wrong and shouts that there may be a sniper. Senku is the only one who instinctively tries to look and find Stanley, which confirms his identity. Stanley confirms with Dr. Zeno that he wants him to kill Senku. Zeno hesitates for a second, but he knows that Senku will always oppose his world domination goals, so yeah, kill him, Stan! Senku scrambles to create a substance in a sack with only flour and water that can absorb the impact of a sniper shot. Stanley fires, and the bullet smashes into Senku's sack. Episode 9, Light of Science. Senku survives the impact, but is severely wounded by a bullet fragment. Luna is amazed at his quick thinking and starts to fall for Senku. She was a medical student back in the old world, so she uses her skills to save Senku's life. Outside Dr. Zeno's base, Chrome and Kohaku reunite with the squad that was sent to kidnap Zeno. Then, they receive a transmission from the Perseus telling them about Senku's condition. It's going to be entirely up to them to find a way inside the base. Oh yeah, it's Chrome time! First though, they have a plan to buy some more time before Zeno attacks the Perseus again. Ukyo fires an arrow with the powerless Medusa attached right at Zeno's front door. Gen, still undercover, bluffs that Senku has a ton of Medusas and sent this one as a warning. Zeno can confirm that this is a kind of technology he's never seen before, so he can't take that risk. Zeno commands his men to start construction on something that will let them annihilate the Kingdom of Science, even if they do have Medusas. Chrome comes up with the idea to create a drill, which is impressive for someone who has never seen a drill.
So it's a drill.
Really though?
He draws up plans with all the steps they'll need to make it. Now, it's just a simple crafting race between Chrome's drill and Zeno's secret project. You know I love a crafting episode. Episode 10, Dirty Roads. Koski forges a massive drill head and sends Taiju to deliver it to Chrome. The meathead sets out in a mobile lab but gets spotted by Carlos, a spy from Zeno's empire who served as Luna's driver in the old world. Taiju drives right up to the guy and offers to give him a ride back to his base. Carlos can't understand Japanese, but he can still immediately recognize what a King Taiju is. But once they reach Chrome's team, they tie Carlos up. Can't be too safe. Carlos is impressed by these kids' determination and how much they are able to accomplish even with Senku out of commission. When Carlos learns that Luna is safe and in love with Senku, he agrees to help and tells them the layout of Zenos' base. Is there any enemy they can't win over with their gumption and charm? While Luna continues to care for Senku, she asks him to be her boyfriend.
If you do survive this, will you be my boyfriend?
Girl, this is not the time. Our boy agrees anyway, but everyone is pretty sure he just said yes so she would keep helping. Before long, Dr. Zeno's men finish their secret project. Then, Ryusui spots Stanley flying towards the Perseus in another plane. He and Senku hop in their newly customized science plane and catapult it off the longer deck they just made. Seriously, Senku? You just got shot. Oh well. It's time for a science versus science dogfight. Episode 11, Those Who Know the Rules, Those Who Don't. The two planes circle each other, with Senku fixing the plane up just as fast as it can fall apart. These two incredible pilots, Stanley and Ryusui, keep outdoing each other with ridiculous aerial stunts to line up a perfect shot. But in the end, Senku had created a higher octane fuel for the plane that allowed them to get the slight edge. Ryusui has Stanley's plane in their sights, but the only weapon they have is the dinky little pistol, so victory is far from assured. While everyone is distracted by the air battle, we finally get to see Zeno's secret project is a submarine. The sub sneaks in from below the Perseus and hits it with a torpedo. Beefy guys with assault rifles board the ship and start taking captives. Up in the air, Senku tosses some acetylene gas bombs at Stanley's plane and takes its engine out again. Can't believe he got him twice with the same trick. But then, since Senku wasn't fully recovered, he slipped up and dropped one of the gas bombs inside their own cockpit, so the plane crashes into the forest. Maz and Matsukaze are still resisting arrest on the ship, but they get a nasty surprise. The person piloting the plane wasn't Stanley at all, but a woman dressed up to look like him. The real Stanley jumps out of the submarine and subdues all the fighters on board with a gun. At the same time, Stanley captures the Perseus. Chrome's drill bursts into Xenos' base, and the evil scientist is surrounded. I can't keep track of who's winning at this point. Episode 12, Reunion. Alarms start going off, so Chrome's team reunites with Gen, grabs Dr. Zeno, and jumps back into their tunnel. Chrome sets a bomb off to cave in the entrance behind them, but it causes the tunnel to cave in on both ends, so they're trapped underground. Dr. Zeno tries to convince Chrome to join him, but he's talking to the wrong dude. Chrome just likes making cool, not ruling over people. They manage to dig their way out and report to Senku that the operation was a success. Francois and Kaski manage to escape from the Perseus with Luna's help. Then, Senku and Ryusui meet up with them and Chrome's team. When Dr. Zeno sees that Senku is alive, he actually seems kinda happy. Then, the whole squad steals one of Zeno's boats and begins fleeing towards the ocean. With Stanley and Zeno both away from the base, command falls to Zeno's engineer Brody, a very upbeat guy who dislikes unnecessary violence. Senku hops on the radio and begins negotiating with Brody, and they reach a temporary agreement.
I tell you kids is absolutely unhinged!
That's the deal.
Everyone on the Perseus will stay here in America and work with Zeno's men to build a massive, functioning Corn City. Meanwhile, Senku's team will continue to run away from Stanley, who will never abandon Dr. Zeno. So for now, the Kingdom of Science will be splitting up. One team will establish their corn paradise here in the US, and another will travel to the place the petrification beam originated in South America. And that team will be chased by a psycho soldier. Should be fun. Episode 13, Watching the Same Moon. And we now get another flashback to Zeno and Stanley's first meeting. When they were children, Zeno built a railgun, and Stanley appeared out of nowhere to help him calibrate his aim. Stanley respected Zeno's intelligence and ambitious nature, and the two became friends. What? Where are they? Where are their parents? Was Stanley a child soldier? This scene doesn't make any sense. Anyway, all the hostages on board the Perseus disembarked to start making Corn City. Everyone except Ginro and Matsukaze, who stay on board by mistake. Stanley threatens to kill Matsukaze if he doesn't reveal where Senku is headed, and Ginro spills the info quick. He doesn't want to lose his loyal servant. Meanwhile, on Senku's ship, he's filling Zeno in on everything that's happened since he was revived. Zeno agrees to temporarily work together with Senku to uncover the mastermind behind the petrification. They pool all their knowledge to determine the exact location the green light originated from, deep in the Amazon rainforest. With these two teamed up, Y-Man better watch out! Episode 14, Earth Race. To reach Ground Zero for petrification, the science team will have to travel all the way around the bottom of South America, and since their boat is smaller, they'll have to make frequent stops to get charcoal for fuel. It's only a matter of time before Stanley catches up to them in the Perseus. Boy, it sure would be nice if they ran into the one person in the world who could help them out here. One night, while chopping down trees, Taiju sees giant letters floating in the sky spelling out hell. Scary! Senku recognizes them as kites with glowing paint on them that are probably supposed to spell help. They travel to where the kites are coming from and encounter this terrifying creature. Nah, it's actually just Chelsea, a hyperactive teen explorer who revived on her own and has barely been surviving here. Chelsea is a prodigy who has complete knowledge of all the world's geography, so she'll be extremely useful when they need to journey deep into the Amazon. Having her knowledge on their side means Senku can come up with a new plan, building motorcycles and traveling straight to Ground Zero from the western side of South America instead of going the long way around. It'll take a few days to gather all the necessary materials to build motorcycles, but they don't have nearly that long. Ukiyo can see on the radar that the Perseus has already nearly caught up to them. Ryusui has the idea to stitch all of Chelsea's kites together to create a massive sail, and their ship starts to go faster than the Perseus. Episode 15, The Escape. Senku's team has to keep up this breakneck speed while making stops to harvest rubber. Fortunately, Chelsea knows exactly where to look. They send out the mobile lab as a decoy for Stanley to follow, but he sees the ruse quickly and blows up the lab without wasting time. Damn! Seeing the lab get whacked like that is honestly painful. Senku and his friends get the rubber they need for tires and work day and night to make 6 motorcycles. Stanley's team arrive at their location right as they're finishing up. They use a smokescreen to get away, but Stanley manages to injure both Tsukasa and Hyoga with accurate shots. Stanley's men try to chase after them with a plane, but Senku sabotaged all the jet fuel on the Perseus by mixing in sugar, so it crashes them for a 3rd time. The squad escapes on their bikes and heads for the Amazon. Now I'd like to see Stanley try to build 6 motorcycles that quickly. Episode 16, Medusa Mechanism. Senku calls back to the team in Corn City and gives them an important mission. They have to disassemble the Medusa to try and figure out what makes it tick. That way, if Senku finds a Medusa at Ground Zero, they can hopefully use it against Stanley, even if it's out of juice. And the plan for how they'll disassemble such a delicate and futuristic device is simple. Senku builds a fax machine, which Chelsea will use to send detailed maps to Corn City. The team there will use those maps to find and revive the CEO of a watch company, who will then lead them to her most skilled watchmaker. Like I said, simple. The US team revives Joel, a watchmaker who is unparalleled in precision crafting. It seems like they've pretty much run out of character archetypes at this point, so he's half nervous geek, half confident jerk.
A watch is more than a means for a man to mind the time. The watch makes the man.
Anyway, Joel manages to figure out that the Medusa's power source is a tiny crystal. He manages to get a little more juice by taking the crystal out and plugging it back in, just enough to accidentally petrify himself. Now, they just have to figure out where to get more of these future battery crystals. In South America, Senku's team is crossing the Andes Mountains, but soon reach a point where the terrain is too steep for their bikes. And bad timing, because Stanley has just finished repairing his plane. Before he can find them, Senku's team will try to build a functioning ropeway to transport all their gear up the mountain. If they can make it up, they'll reach the Amazon and be safely covered by trees. We're nearing the end of this series, so will this be our final crafting race? Oh, I'm getting emotional here. Episode 17, Sickening Yet Beautiful. It doesn't take Senku long to make a pulley system for getting across a large chasm, but it can't support much weight. They'll have to cross in pairs while being careful not to leave Dr. Zeno alone with people who can't fight. The only solution involves Zeno and Hyoga crossing together, but everyone is sort of worried that they might decide to team up and kill everyone if they're left alone. What's life without risks, though? Suika falls off the ropeway, and Kohaku leaps off the cliff to grab her. Unfortunately, this leaves Hyoga without any fighters to watch him. He could easily push half the science team off the cliff if he wanted, but instead, he helps Kohaku up. He really has changed. That makes him the second character to be fully redeemed after trying to kill an innocent child. Cool! Soon, the team has made it across, and they reach the Amazon rainforest. Senku uses that big brain to create insect repellent, rubber boots, and rafts to traverse the dangerous forest. Eventually, they reach their destination, and there's no mistaking that this was Ground Zero for the petrification. In front of the science team sits an enormous pyramid made entirely out of Medusas. Episode 18, Diamond Heart. The team dives right into thousands of Medusas laying before them. Sadly, every single one of them seems to be out of juice, so until they can figure out how to overcome that hurdle, they'll need to continue evading Stanley. Chrome figures out that the Medusa's unique shape makes it undetectable to radar, so they build a new ship covered entirely in Medusas. Stealth ship acquired! While examining the Medusas, Senku figures out that the little crystal batteries aren't anything that special, they're just normal diamonds. If they can replace one of them with a new diamond that's the right size and shape, they should be able to get it working again. So he tasks the team back in Corn City with creating a lab-grown diamond. It's a long, difficult process full of trial and error, but they eventually succeed, mostly thanks to Yuzuriha. Episode 19, Stone Sanctuary. By now, the Corn City team has a whole pile of diamonds. Unfortunately, they're each as big as a grain of sand, way too small for the Medusa. Senku says they'll need both lab-grown and natural diamonds for what he's planning, so their work is far from over. Chelsea knows where a diamond mine is near Corn City, and the team goes Minecraft mode. Once they have some diamonds, Joel uses sandpaper lined with the synthetic diamond dust to create a diamond in the correct shape. While they're in South America, Senku's team decides to make a quick stop at a stone sanctuary to harvest some rare minerals minerals they'll need to build a rocket ship. Conveniently, they'll be able to get some diamonds of their own there too. Dr. Zeno manages to secretly get a signal out to Stanley telling him that's where they're headed, so Stanley heads for the stone sanctuary as well. Senku's team gets there first and builds a quick stone fortress. Now, they just have to hope they can make their own diamond batteries before Stanley gets there. The plan is that as soon as Stanley's forces arrive, they'll activate a Medusa with a huge range that covers the entire stone sanctuary. Then, one person waiting outside the range will come back and revive only the Kingdom of Science. Again, this is all dependent on them fixing a Medusa. Joel and Koski both work non-stop to try and create a perfect diamond battery, but both of them are stumped. Episode 20, What I Once Sought to Destroy. Suika and Francois are acting as lookouts when they spot Stanley's forces approaching. They've also brought Ginro and Matsukaze along as hostages. The lookouts are about to go warn the others when Suika sees one of the soldiers got bit by a venomous spider. Suika is truly too kind for this world because she immediately brings medicine to the soldier even though it means getting caught. Francois does some quick thinking and throws a knife to Matsukaze, who uses it to free Ginro. Oh, good, they're all saved! To his credit, Ginro actually attempts to fight back, but Stanley overpowers him pretty quick. Francois notices that the soldiers don't seem to be the kind to kill anyone that they don't need to, so they surrender rather than risk getting Suika hurt. Before they get caught though, Francois sends an emergency signal back to Senku. When Kohaku hears that her adorable Suika got captured, she wastes no time in charging straight towards the enemy. Tsukasa and Hyoga follow closely behind, and the three are soon engaged in battle with Stanley's squad. While all three of them are absolute beasts, they don't stand much of a chance against this technologically advanced unit. Both Hyoga and Tsukasa are soon shot again. This time though, it looks much more serious. Kohaku is enraged, but manages to destroy the enemy's radio before being shot herself. That night, the Kingdom of Science's three greatest warriors all lay bleeding out in the rain, placing all of their hopes on Senku's shoulders. Episode 21, Our Dr. Stone. With Suika and Francois tied up, Luna and Chelsea become the new revival team who will wait outside the Medusa's range. Once they're far away, Chelsea starts crying. She believes that the real reason they were sent away was to protect them from Stanley's inevitable siege. Just then, Stanley's team begins firing upon the fortress. Taiju gets freaking blown up by a grenade. Then, Ryusui is gunned down by Stanley. Gen watches in horror as his friends are massacred around him. Jesus! When did this become berserk? Things are looking really bleak, but Senku will never give up. Then, Stanley blows up the workshop containing all of their diamonds. But Senku will never give up, right? Right that second, the cell phone begins to ring, and it's that badass watchmaker, the true main character of Dr. Stone, Joel. Don't you love when the day is saved by a character who's had 30 seconds of screen time? Joel has successfully polished a diamond to create perfect dimensions and reactivate a Medusa, but the second he does, Brody snatches it and throws it into a locked chest. Running out of both time and options, Senku comes up with his most insane plan yet. If the South America team isn't able to fix a Medusa, then the Corn City team will just have to activate it with a range big enough to reach South America, meaning everyone in the entire hemisphere will be petrified. So Magma, Nikki, Kinro, and the rest of the Corn City squad begin fighting back against Brody and his men. If any of them gets shot, who cares? They'll probably be fine after getting revived. They go all out, but it's still not enough against a horde of assault weapons. Soon, Joel is the only one left. Just as he gets his hand inside the chest with the Medusa, Brody slams the lid down, crushing Joel's hand inside. Brody gloats over his victory, and damn, I actually thought he was a cool guy. But then, Joel reveals that his watch, which is now hidden inside the chest, had a hidden receiver and speaker. It intercepts and plays a transmission from Y-Man, the same one that has been playing on a loop this entire time. It's the command to activate the Medusa with a range that covers the entire world.
Affects 12 million and 800,000 meters in 1 second.
And so, for the second time, all human life suddenly freezes. Episode 22, Until We Meet Again. A few minutes before the global petrification goes off again, Senku, Chrome, Koski, and Gen are the only ones left standing in South America. They have no way of knowing whether the others will succeed in activating the Medusa, but they need to prepare in case they do. As they're discussing a plan to make sure they get automatically revived after petrification, Stanley shoots Senku in the shoulder and destroys their jar of revival fluid. Crap! The green light is racing towards the stone sanctuary, but the only revival fluid left is with Suika and Francois. Stanley frees Zeno, and the Wicked Doctor guns down everyone in his path. Suika barely manages to escape with the fluid and brings it to a tower in the center of the fort. Right then, the light reaches them, and everyone turns to stone. Years go by, with everything at a complete standstill. Over time, the bottle of revival fluid is worn down by the elements, until it eventually cracks and spills some fluid onto Suika's statue. Suika breaks free, but no matter how hard she looks, she can't find a single drop of revival fluid anywhere. A literal child is now the only person alive on Earth, and she's all alone in a rainforest, without even her glasses. The only food Suika can find is a tiny amount of dried meat, and she becomes worried that she'll soon starve. At night, Suika is overcome with loneliness and despair, and cries out for her frozen friends. But then, she recalls that Senku also started out by himself and managed to make an incredible amount of progress. She resolves to use all of that science she's learned in the last 4 seasons to survive and bring the entire world back from the edge of extinction. Nobody is doing it like Suika. Episode 23, Scientist All Alone. After catching some tasty fish, Suika needs to figure out how to create the revival fluid all by herself. Fortunately, Senku just happened to have the recipe for revival fluid in his pocket. Suika first tries the straightforward chemistry approach, but it is way too complicated for her. Cut her some slack. She can barely read. Luckily, there's another, much longer route she can take. Be warned, it's not very glamorous. Suika has to spend months collecting animal poop and burying it with calcium carbonate to try and produce nitric acid. Her first attempt fails, as does the next one, and the one after that. But Suika never gives up and repeats the process as many times as it takes. One day, after 7 freaking years, Suika has enough fluid to revive Senku. He wakes up and sees Suika is now not much younger than Senku himself. Senku thanks Suika, and the two embrace tearfully. It took a good long while, but the Kingdom of Science has officially claimed victory against Stanley. Freaking Stanley! Episode 24, Whole New World, is the last episode of Season 4. It took Suika 7 years to revive Senku, and it takes Senku about 7 minutes to revive everyone else. Hey, it's not a contest. They revive all the members of the Kingdom of Science, and everyone is okay. Even the people who were filled with bullets for hours before being petrified are completely fine. That night, Tsukasa pulls Senku aside to talk to him. He knows that Hyoga was definitely dead long before the petrification came, and yet now Hyoga is completely fine. So the Medusa isn't just the ultimate healing device, it can even reverse death. I guess we shouldn't be too surprised, since it did kinda bring Senku back from the dead in Season 1. Chrome overhears this conversation and can't help jumping in. He's psyched that now none of his friends will ever have to die, but his bros explain to him why immortality isn't as nice as it sounds.
Imagine an immortal world. Soon the planet would be overrun. Tens of billions of the elderly.
Well, when you put it like that, immortality sucks. But come on, we can at least use it for old Koski, can't we? Please? Anyway, with everyone back, it's time for the Kingdom of Science to resume their mission. They now have pretty much everything they need to build a rocket, go to the moon, and face off with Y-Man once and for all. That brings us to the end of the entire story of Dr. Stone for now. We still have an exciting fight final season to come, and if you can't wait that long, you could always go read the manga to see how it ends. Dr. Stone has truly one of the most original premises in all of anime, and I honestly learned a lot of stuff just from watching it. But what did you think? Do you think it holds up, or were there a few too many leaps in logic for you? Leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, I'll see you next time.